The following is a special presentation of ESPN on ABC.
There is nothing quite like Indianapolis. The day, the race, the spectacle. Welcome to the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500, the pre-race show presented by Pennzoil. And for the 54th year, we are on ABC. Hi there, I'm Nicole Briscoe. There are 33 drivers in this field, and over the next several hours, they will write a story. For one, the ending will be career-defining, a little bit like winning a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers has done that. He is here today with his girlfriend, Danica Patrick, making the final start of her career. More on that in a minute. Kelly Clarkson's going to sing the national anthem. And Thor, actor Chris Hemsworth. He has an important job. He will wave the green flag today. Some advice he's received on that. And Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers. Fittingly, he will drive the pace car. There is a certain amount of respect given to the Speedway as she comes to life on a race morning, a quiet calm, and then the noise as teams begin their final preparation. Cars are now on the grid, and the drivers, they are making their way to pre-race ceremony, seeing for the first time the crush of fans. For one driver, this place is also his childhood. Ed Carpenter, he grew up in Indianapolis. He attended his first race here when he was 8. He used to actually work at the golf course inside the track, too. In fact, he crashed a few of those golf carts along the way. But he has been clean this month, and Dr. Jerry Punch, he was fastest when it counted, too.
Well, for the third time in his career, Ed, you had the fans standing and screaming with approval as you won the pole here at Indianapolis. And I know you're still searching for that first victory. So today, how do you translate pole day speed to race day results?
It's going to be a totally different day. You know, the conditions are going to be very challenging today. You can feel the heat standing out here already. The track temp's probably going to be as high as we've seen all month. So it's going to be a fight for all of us. You know, we're going to all have to manage our car and traffic and whatever circumstances get thrown at us. But, you know, I feel like we're battle tested right now. I feel like the team's prepared, and, you know, hopefully have good pit stops, and we'll do our best to keep it up front.
Your fellow drivers have said with this current aero package, it's really important to start up front. So how hard will you push early to stay there?
I mean, I think everyone's going to be working hard to get to the front. You know, I think where it's going to get difficult is just not knowing where the yellows are going to fall. You know, if you get a mid-stint yellow, you know, you're going to see the field get split, and it's going to be a tough decision. So hopefully we'll be able to stay at the front, though.
Well, it was a week ago today that Ed Carpenter won the pole here at Indianapolis, and it's important to understand that qualifying at Indy here is not just about speed, it's about emotion.
The Indianapolis Motor Speedway. On bump day, the drama and tension of setting the 33 who will compete in next Sunday's Indianapolis 500-mile race. Drivers scrambling to be in the 33-car field. So here is James Hinchcliffe. He is tracking as the slowest of the cars.
Lap number 4 in the books for Connor Daly. He is 32nd quick for now, bumping James Hinchcliffe from the starting field.
Pip Man is on the track now, on the outside, looking in.
Just doesn't seem to be carrying a lot of speed.
So Pip Man and company will have to come back and try again. 13 minutes and change left to go.
Boy, I can feel the tension just sitting here. He's trying to empty his head of everything.
2016 pole winner.
He's having to fight to get the last place on the grid.
Very, 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 very bad vibration. I got a pit. Copy pit.
And the track will become available to Pippa Man. And all James Hinchcliffe can do is sit, listen to his heartbeat, and watch the seconds tick away.
James Hinchcliffe is not going to qualify for this year's Indianapolis 500.
Well, standing here with James Hinchcliffe, and okay, let's talk about the fact that as hard as it was on bump day, how hard was it the next day when all the other drivers were getting back in their car and you weren't?
It's a weird thing. It's weird being at a racetrack and not driving, even if you're not supposed to be in the race. So being at a racetrack and not driving when you really should be in the race is tough. There's no doubt about it. But it was a good kind of, you know, dip your toe in the water of what it's going to be like today. Today's going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, I'm really proud of this team. I'm proud of my teammates. I'm going to be obviously cheering them on, helping in any way I can. But yeah, it's going to be a tough day for sure.
All right, there were efforts to get you into a car after that day, which would have meant you're taking the place of some other driver. How close did that get?
Honestly, that was all done so far above me. I don't even know. I told him I really want to be left out of that. Like I said, from the beginning, I was mentally preparing to not be in the race from the minute that gun went off, because that's what I needed to do for me. And I guess there were some discussions. I'm not sure who they were with or how far they got, but ultimately, I think we did what we had to do, and we're going to take our lumps. We're going to put our heads down and go to Detroit and try and win 2 races there.
Yeah, different kind of survival for James Hinchcliffe today. And of course, one of the key things is the fact that the Indy 500 isn't just a race. It is the crown jewel of what can only be described as the greatest day in racing.
Calling all race fans, gearheads, and speed freaks. Your time has come. Welcome to the fastest day of the year. 3 iconic races, 3 legendary tracks, 1 unbelievable day. Sunrise brings racing royalty to the gilded streets of Monaco. Midday promises 500 miles of immortality if you're first to cross the famed Yard of Bricks. And the day ends with an unbelievable endurance test under the lights in Charlotte. If you love the smell of fuel and the taste of victory milk, you, my friend, are in high-octane heaven. The Formula One Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, and the Coca-Cola 600. Today, speed has no limit.
The Indianapolis 500 Free Race Show, presented by Pennzoil on ABC. Pennzoil, make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. And in part by Progressive Insurance. Stay on track with great rates at Progressive.com.
Back in the day, all the naughty pictures came from the old Turn 1 Snake Pit. They shut it down because there is Rowdy and then there is Snake Pit Rowdy. I'm not sure it's actually much calmer there today. You still need to be a proper grown-up to be there. It is much tamer where I am right now. This has always been my favorite place to watch from IMS. It's the grassy knoll in Turn 2. Like, grab a blanket, maybe a beverage, sit down, and when the cars come by, you feel it in your soul. Now, for reference, I'm in Turn 2. In theory, Turn 3 is just right over there, except not really on this day, because on this day, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway actually becomes the 2nd largest city in Indiana. We're talking 300,000 people, the 64th largest city in the U.S. just for this day. So big that it becomes bigger than 53 countries in the world. Now, I'm not judging. Okay, maybe a little bit. But I think where you choose to watch this race might say a little something about you. In all of my years coming here, I have never been brave enough to go where Marty Smith is right now.
Welcome to the Snake Pit, Nicole. It's funny, the Indianapolis 500, an American sporting institution. And somewhere within that portrait of Americana are these wild people. The Snake Pit, down in Turn 3. Look, this is its own tradition. They've been racing cane in the infield here since the 1920s, and the stories are every bit as epic as A.J. Foyt, Rick Mears, or Al Unser. It is crazy out here. This is the rowdy crowd. Let's head over to the sophisticated bunch and Doc Punch. Not a fan of sitting in race traffic with over 200,000 of your closest friends, but still want to be here early enough to enjoy the energy of this spectacle? Try this, glamping, glamorous camping. This year, 72 tents complete with beds, furniture, electricity, and 15 air-conditioned tiny houses. Prices start about $1,300 for a party of 4 in a tent. The key word there is party. But here's the best part, folks. We're right in the middle of the action. Who's ready to see some drivers?
Can you imagine the emotions today for Danica Patrick? She is back at the place that made her a household name. Remember 2005 when she took the world by storm, in the lead late and finished 4th as a rookie behind Dan Weldon? Today she is back for the first time in 7 years, but also for the final time, period, the end. Her driving career comes to an end when her race does today. The first woman to win an IndyCar Series race, Japan in 2008. She finished 3rd here back in 2009. Back in 2018 to close the book. Here's Hannah Storm.
Can't think of a better place to end than here, where it all began, and just come really full circle.
Why was it so important to you to end your career here?
Good memories, a lot of memories, period, all brought together for one last race. And so it's going to be an emotional race day, but I'm going to try and have as much fun as possible and go out with the best possible finish I can manage.
What do you remember the most about being here as a rookie and leading those 19 laps?
I just remember feeling so humble because it was easy. Like, it just was. The car was good. It was really fast. Like, I just remember it being easy. And I remember thinking, just stay humble. Like, there's no way it can be this easy all the time. If there's one thing that I've learned about life in general, but especially this track and its history and its life that it has here, is like, don't be too cocky.
Look at this! And the crowd is jumping up and down. Look at this, it's absolutely amazing.
Danica Patrick has moved out into the front. Danica Patrick is for real, and she leads.
Why do you think that what you were able to accomplish here at Indy, why did it resonate so strongly outside of your sport?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't really know, other than the fact that there's only a couple things that one, I'm always honest, and so I think people can connect with that. They see that, they feel that.
And the trailblazing aspect to what you've done.
I'm a girl.
By the way.
Yeah. If I would have thought of myself as being different and being a girl and how am I doing for a girl, well, then that would have been the gauge, right? And then my mind would have been fixated on that limit or that potential, and it never has been.
Have you made it easier for women who have dreams in the sport?
Our mind is incredibly powerful, so as soon as you think that you can do something, you can. That's really the teaching. Not me doing something. Me doing something doesn't make you able to do something, right? You have to believe it. And so there are going to be skeptics and there are going to be believers from the very beginning, and then it's how you deal with the situation, you know?
What are you going to be able to do that you haven't been able to do that you're really excited about?
I'm excited to just have generally less pressure. Like, I feel like in my evolution, I enjoy doing things that are artistic and creating, and so I want to do more of that and less of the, knot in my stomach, holy, do it, you dig deep, this is what you do, Danica. I'm excited to let go of that and just relax.
The legacy question has to be asked. What do you think it will be in terms of racing?
More than anything, I just hope they remember me as a great driver and that I was a girl. That is not something to be dismissed. I think that's part of my story. I'm proud of it. It's helped me. It's hurt me. I just hope people remember me as a great driver.
And this summer, Danica Patrick will do something else that no other woman has ever done before. She will host the ESPYs live on ABC, presented by Capital One. It is Wednesday, July the 18th from the Microsoft Theater. It's the night where sports and entertainment collide, though that's sort of happening here today, too. Actor Chris Hemsworth, Thor, he also played James Hunt in the movie Rush. He's going to wave the green flag today. All right, so when you throw out the first pitch in baseball, the one thing they tell you is don't bounce it. What advice have you been given about waving the flag today?
Definitely don't bounce the flag either. Don't drop it. Trying to work out which hand we're going to use. Wave it in the right direction so you don't redirect the cars. There's a few things that are weighing on my shoulders, a bit of pressure, but should be fun.
How long do you plan on staying up in that perch?
As long as they let me. They'll probably wave me back down again. I don't know. It's very exciting, though. This is the first time I've been here. I've been to Formula E in New York, which was great. Been to Monaco. This is the whole different thing again. It's wonderful.
How does this compare to Monaco? I mean, this is the biggest day in motorsports across the world. How does this experience compare to that?
Look, it's just as chaotic and the crowd's just as intense and busy and excited. So they're very similar. Obviously, a far different sort of geographic setting, but the crowd's as enthusiastic as what was in Monaco, yeah.
Hey, just remember, don't drop it. Enjoy the day. So Chris will start the day with the green flag, but remember, for one driver, this is all going to end with an ice-cold bottle of milk. Marty Smith?
One of Indy's most iconic traditions arrives in a glass jug at 5:45 in the morning by the first people they let in the gates here on race day, the milk folks. For more than 80 years, nearly every Indy 500 winner has sipped from the glass chalice of tradition and showered his life-changing moment in white droplets of history. It all began in 1936 with Louis Meyer. His mother told him, on a hot day, drink buttermilk. Well, when he won the 500, he was hot, and like any good son, he listened to Mama. What he didn't know is in that moment, he penned history.
And don't forsake Meyer's tradition. Ask Emerson Fittipaldi. In 1993, Fittipaldi chose to drink orange juice in Victory Lane to promote some orange groves he owned. They still haven't forgotten him around here. These days, all 33 drivers choose the brand of milk they want to drink in Victory Lane before they ever get in the car, just in case they get the opportunity to shower victory in history. Check it out. Here's the list of what the drivers hope for. Check out Ed Carpenter. He's going to go Louis Meyer on him if he wins. He wants that buttermilk.
You know, we go big here. We bring in the flags via the sky in this Memorial Day weekend. 8 jumpers, some of them veterans, 4 flags, all 4 corners. And when we come back, the most kissable bricks in all the land. The Indianapolis 500 pre-race show brought to you by United Rentals and their Turns for Troops program. It helps provide cutting-edge medical technology and rehabilitation access to military veterans. Turns for Troops, helping our heroes take their next steps forward 1 lap at a time. In no other world does the idea of getting down on your hands and knees and putting your mouth to road that's been run over repeatedly sound appealing. Unless, of course, you're in Indianapolis and that piece of road is the yard of bricks, which is also always a tough one to explain to the kids. No, don't eat that food off the floor, but yeah, let's go kiss some bricks. If you win this race once, you are a part of history. If you win it 4 times, you have rewritten history. AJ Foyt, Al Unser, Rick Mears, the only 4-time winners of this race, but we could add to that list today, Jan Beekes.
Yes, we could, and of course that would be Helio Castro-Neves, who just saw that graphic of the 4-time winners. Last year, he was within 0.2 of a second of pulling that off, but the cars have changed a lot since then. How do you rate your chances today?
Yeah, no, I like it very much. Shell Pennzoil machine looks strong. Definitely, as you can see, the weather is really, really hot. Something that the entire week that everybody's been practicing, it's a little bit different. So a lot of people, not only myself, but a lot of people started relearning the car during those conditions. But we feel that we have enough tools in the car to make that happen. So I'm excited. Let's get going.
Okay, so just quickly, is there anything to the fact you're not running the whole series in IndyCar? Does that in some way make you more laser focused on today?
Well, I feel that we have nothing to lose at this point. We're not thinking about points. We're not thinking about championship. We're just thinking about that big one, and we're going to make it happen.
And, of course, Helio will be easy to spot again this year in the Pennzoil colors, driving what he calls the Yellow Submarine, Nicole.
Well, Roger Penske collected his 200th IndyCar Series win with Will Power's win at the Indy Grand Prix just a couple of weeks ago. There have been 15 Penske IndyCar championships, but that big number when you drive for Roger Penske is 16. 16 wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. None of the guys who have the privilege of calling this race, Scott Goodyear, Eddie Cheever, and Alan Bestwick, if you were going to look at one team to win this race today, Penske is probably a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, those numbers sure do say a lot about the captain and his team here at Indianapolis, Nicole. What makes Roger Penske so good here?
Well, think about that. He started down this path many, many decades ago. He's had lots of great drivers drive. What's been the one consistency? It's been Roger Penske. He is unrelenting when he starts down a road, and he now has number 16, and today he's got 4 guys that could make it 17.
Now, Roger could be any place on the planet he chose to be today, but he chooses to be here at Indianapolis, and not up in the air-conditioned suite, but on the timing stand, calling the strategy for one of his race teams. So that passion for this race, how does that affect the drivers and the mechanics and the teams that work for him?
Alan, you ask anybody that works for Roger Penske, and they will tell you that Roger tells them the most important race to win is the Indianapolis 500. It is what defines the $21 billion Penske automotive empire. Now, the only guy that maybe doesn't have pressure on him here today to win is Helio Castro-Neves, because he's won 3 times. But for Penske's other 3 drivers who have won the Verizon IndyCar Series championship, they know that to retain their job at Team Penske, they're going to have an Indianapolis 500 victory on their resume.
All right, so 4 of the 33 cars in the field today are from Team Penske. Penske or the field?
On those odds, conditions today, new cars, the heat, I'm going to go with the field.
You?
I'm going with Penske every day, every race. With
you take the safe way.
I'm taking the very safe way.
Those 4 cars all qualified in the top 8 spots in the field. They'll certainly be contenders for sure. Let's hear from last year's champion who drives for Team Penske. Josef Newgarden is down on pit road.
Well, Alan, you're right. He is the reigning champion. He won the championship in his very first year for Roger Penske. But when you drive for the captain, there's one job, and that's winning the 500. Do you feel that pressure when you're with this team?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think you feel the pressure of the Indy 500 in general, but when you're running it with Team Penske, you feel that legacy, you feel the pressure to do your job for the group. And this one means the most. We get one opportunity every year to make this happen at this race, and coming to Sunday for this race day, you've had 2-3 weeks to sort out your car. You got one day to get it right. So that pressure is enormous, but I think we have great cars. Team Chevy's done an amazing job for us this month. We feel like we have the power, reliability, and certainly the engine mileage, and we're ready to go today. The Verizon car is going to be quick.
All right, all 4 cars are really strong. Let's say all 4 cars on the lead lap are battling it out on that last lap. What's your mindset? What do you do?
You want to be in the right position. You know, we don't know yet if that's leading or if it's second or third. You don't really know yet until you run the race. You're kind of gaming that out throughout the entire process, figuring out where you want to be positioned. But look, if there's 4 of us on the lead lap battling it out, that's a good thing for Team Penske. And I can tell you, all these guys, they want it really bad. So we're going to run each other hard, but try and be very fair.
Yeah, how competitive is the battle between these teammates? Well, you would really call it an all-out war, and in this case, an autograph war.
Even though we're teammates, there's some lines you just don't cross.
Is this over?
This will never be over.
It really started when I signed the IndyCar at the Indianapolis airport.
When I took it to the next level, I'm signing a rear race car.
Simon is so easy to bait. It's like taking the pole position from a baby.
Hey, Simon, that's a super cute signature. Check out this one.
I know if I push him a little bit, and that's what's fun.
Dear King Joseph, since I see that you've already signed your own helmet...
You know the helmet? That really hurt. That hit really close to home with me.
Simon, you gotta think bigger than that, bro.
He signed my house.
Been signed. Your move, bro.
And it really went up a notch.
I may have done it, Joseph.
Your move. And Simon signed my front door. Who's gonna see that? The package delivery guy?
I'm gonna sign the bottom of your car.
I had to wait for his move. That's the game. It's your move, bro.
So, Joseph, you do know where I am right now. I signed. You move, bro.
What kind of guy signs another guy's shoes?
I'm like a fox terrier, man. I never give up.
Did you retaliate?
I think he's getting a little fed up with it. I'm not.
Whatever. You know, April 15th, that was a particularly difficult day.
The next level was when I signed his mom. That really, I think that made him upset in a way.
And with Joseph's mom. Check this out.
I thought we agreed not to speak about that. You know, I was struggling to process it.
Hi, Joseph's mom.
Maybe anger, betrayal, but really just determination.
It's your move, bro!
Yep, that's the deadly weapon right there. And you drive by and all you can see is my signature on his banner. It's your move, bro.
You know, at this point, I thought I just needed to do something nice, like get his motor coach detailed.
Did you really?
Oh, I did it.
I don't know about this, son. It started.
Are we getting pulled over?
Just make a legal U-turn down there.
Oh, what's up?
Oh, my God!
It's your move, bro.
When will this challenge end?
Well, I'm guessing with me taking the final checkered flag.
Oh, yes. It's your move, bro.
Your move, bro.
Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the pre-race show presented by Pennzoil. Can you imagine Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl one season and then in the off-season switching teams and trying to come back the very next year to win it again, but with a different team? That's Takuma Sato. He won the Indy 500 last year with Andretti Autosport. He's back this year, but with Rahal Letterman Lanigan racing. You would think that that would make him different. The chaos here is contagious.
The Indy 500 is about precision, measured in microseconds and razor-thin margins.
Little Al wins by just a few tenths of a second!
But into this order, some chaos must come. It begins with a brave 33. 33 drivers, some moving before moving. New cars, new names, new teams. Every year, exciting unknowns are welcomed at this iconic oval. New blood, wide eyes, Indy light champion, 3 top 5s in 3 months. Expectations through the roof. There are familiar faces in unfamiliar places. Kimball, 7 years of Ganassi, now with Carlin. Chilton led laps last year. Off you go. Jonesy, Rookie of the Year, not enough. New team, new team, new team. Even 2 champions will try to return to victory lane wearing the colors of a former rival. You drank the milk and still, new team? Few races have the power to upset the natural order of things. This track owes you nothing. But the call of these bricks is too strong for speed demons to ignore. Elio, back with Penske. Penske, climb the fence again. Daly, first race this year, make or break. Hildebrand, so smart. Can he think his way to a victory? It's also a powerful way to frame a record-setting career. First lady of fast, so fast, but not here for 7 years. And drive off into the sunset, knowing you've changed the sport forever. One. Change comes in many forms. New car. Including one that puts skill above all else in the driver's seat. No one knows this car. To make sense of the chaos, one must focus on the known. That speed and danger are brothers. And your chance may come at over 200 miles an hour. So fast. Here, reward never precedes risk. On the ball again. And victory embraces but one. All of these drivers thirst for the same thing. Drink the milk. And from all this chaos, a resolution. The trophy. Beautiful. Borg Warner. Measured precisely, forged in metal. Never to be forgotten. The spectacle.
35 drivers tried, but only 33 get the honor of crossing this very stage today. Are you ready to meet the starting field for the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500? Bob Jenkins, take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. Here we go. Starting in 33rd position, driving the number 17 car in his 5th Indy 500 appearance, Connor Daly. He rocked the racing world with his daring rookie win at the 100th Indianapolis 500 in 2016, Alexander Rossi. And starting in his 2nd Indy 500 from Bassington, England, Jack Harvey. On to the 10th row, he was the youngest driver ever to win an IndyCar race, making his 11th Indy 500 start, Graham Rahal. He finished in 3rd place last year in his first 500 from Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, Ed Jones. And returning for his 3rd Indy start from Basildon, England, Jay Howard. And now row 9. His 2nd place finish earned him Rookie of the Year honors in 2011, J.R. Hildebrand. Starting in his 10th Indy 500 in 26th position from Catalonia, Spain, Oriol Servia. Competing in his 2nd Indy 500, driving for Andretti Autosport in the number 26 car, Zach Beach. On to the 8th row, 2013 Indy Lights champion, competing in his 5th Indy 500 race, Sage Karam. In the middle of that row, driving the number 25 car for Andretti Autosport from Sheffield, England, Stefan Wilson. Here's the 2014 Indy Lights champion from Bogota, Colombia, Gabby Chavez. In row 7, 2013 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year and 2-time runner-up. Starting in his 6th Indianapolis 500, also from Bogota, Colombia, Carlos Munoz. He finished 4th in last year's running of the Indy 500 from Regatta, England, Max Chilton. And competing in his 4th Indy 500 from Melbourne, Australia, James Davison. On to row 6, one of Canada's most accomplished international race car drivers from Guelph, Ontario, Robert Wickens. In the middle, 2017 Indy Lights champion from Santa Clara, California, Kyle Kaiser. His thrilling front stretch duel earned him last year's Borg Warner Trophy, the defending champion from Tokyo, Japan, Takuma Sato. Now in row 5 and starting in his 8th Indy 500 from Camarillo, California, Charlie Kimball. He's the most successful active American driver in open wheel racing. Winner of the 2012 Horizon IndyCar Series and 2014 Indy 500, Ryan Hunter-Reay. And starting in his first Indy 500 from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, Zachary Clayman DeMello. On to row 4, now in his 13th Indy 500, driving the number 98 car for Andretti Berta Autosport, Marco Andretti. Starting in his first Indy 500 as the fastest rookie in the field, 2017 Freedom 100 champion from Brazil, Matheus Leist. And winner of the 2013 Indy 500 and 2004 Horizon IndyCar Series champion, it's TK Tony Kanaan. Starting row 3, he ranks 4th in all-time IndyCar Series wins. It's a 4-time Horizon IndyCar Series champion and winner of the 2008 Indianapolis 500 from Auckland, New Zealand, Scott Dixon. 3-time Indy 500 champion in 2001, 2002, and 2009 from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Here comes the Spider-Man, Helio Castroneves. And starting her 8th career Indy 500 in 7th position, returning for her first Indy 500 since 2011, and retiring from racing at the conclusion of today's event, Danica Patrick. Now moving up to row 2, he was Indy Lights champion in 2015, starting his 3rd Indy 500, Spencer Pigot. In the middle, the only IndyCar driver to win 4 consecutive championships from Le Mans, France, Sébastien Bourdais. And in 4th position, 2017 Verizon IndyCar champion and the current 2018 Series points leader, Josef Newgarden. Starting in the front row, 3-time IndyCar Grand Prix winner and 2014 Verizon IndyCar Series champion from Toowoomba, Australia, Will Power. The parade of Horizon IndyCar Series winners continues with the 2016 Series champion, also from France, Simon Pagenaud. And Indy 500 pole sitter for the 3rd time. He clocked a blistering average qualifying speed of 229.618 miles per hour. From Indianapolis, Indiana, Ed Carpenter. There they are, fans, the starting field for today's Indianapolis 500.
And now they all get to relax, take a break, sit down, take that iconic photo. You know what? I bet someone might actually tweet a picture of that. And maybe someone might get some love from the fans on the other end, and then again, maybe not. And that's okay, because I think it would actually be boring if we did all just get along.
So, race fans, once again, have our round of applause. The field.
Ryan Hunter-Reay is more boring than Ed Carpenter, which is saying something. I don't think the end of that 14 race was very boring.
Tony Kanaan knows has his own area code. Yes, it's 305, Miami area code. It has a beach and an unknown island.
There's no point in having a sexy party if Simon Pagenaud won't be a part of it. Totally agree. Have you seen my hip moves?
Josef Newgarden, superstar. He's the perfect guy to be the face of your series. Handsome, likable, hilarious, great with media, brilliant. He needs to just come with me everywhere and be my hype man.
Robert Wickens looks like he would be on a local Remax billboard. Some endorsements maybe? Remax? Hit me up.
Tony Kanaan looks more like a wrestler than a racer. He's got an uneven ears, a big nose, and a thick neck. It's racing. I don't have to be pretty. I just have to be fast.
I bet that Ryan Hunter-Reay drinks skim milk too. Hashtag Indy 500. Gotta love the fans, man. But I have drinking the milk, so.
Simon Pagenaud to me is like Jean Girard of Talladega Nights. I really want him to lose. Well, that's nice. Don't hate like that. Jeez.
Robert Wickens sounds incredibly Canadian. No doubt about it, eh?
Tony, a nice try. We all know you're really Vin Diesel using a fake accent to try to fool all of us.
Yeah.
I love how all these people are suddenly in love with IndyCar because Josef Newgarden is attractive. That's great reasoning. There's a second part of this tweet and it says, for the love of God, Josef Newgarden is not that attractive. I agree. That's really funny, actually.
Big. I seriously dislike Simon Pagenaud. Such a tool. Wow, what kind of tool? A hammer? A screwdriver? Hey, can't be loved by everybody, but I like you.
It's going to be potentially the hottest Indy 500 on record, a balmy 90+ degrees. What you see right now, that's the other race that no one talks about today. The drivers drinking their fluids and making one last potty stop in case Mother Nature calls. There are 33 drivers and just two bathrooms. Now, when my husband was in this race, this was the part that I would always get very, very nervous, jittery. Becky Gordon, joined by her beautiful family, and Ryan Hunter-Reay. We actually don't care about you in this moment. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready for it to get started.
Nerves of steel, this woman. Nerves of steel. It's about to get very real. Good luck. Beautiful family.
Thank you. It's really good to see you.
We'll be back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in just a few minutes. We're live here on ABC.
How's the old saying go? If these walls could talk? At the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, these walls, they do talk.
This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
This may be the day that a revolution is completely and successfully concluded.
For more than a century, they have framed history. And for the last 53 years, our cameras have captured that history. Every May, every corner of this place speaks to us, vibrating with the echoes and images of what they have absorbed. Sights and sounds have flickered to life in your living room.
I'm Jim McKay speaking to you from one of the most exciting spots at one of the most exciting moments in all the wide world of sports. A.J. Foyt is going to make motor racing history, the first man ever to win this great race 4 times.
The rumbling of roadsters, the whoosh of a turbine, the scream of the turbochargers.
You are looking live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
The voices of the men and women charged with covering history.
Mario Andretti in the bright red number 2. A.J. Foyt in second. Bobby Unser third.
In one car, Indianapolis history, a woman driver, Janet Guthrie.
This proving ground of automotive innovation. This coronation ground for heroes. From A.J. and J.R. to Rick and Elliott, Unser, Andretti, Rahal. Their families have become a part of our family. We have celebrated with them. We have wept with them.
He hits the wall coming out of 4. Will he have enough to cross the yard of bricks?
Sometimes all at once.
Dan Weldon is going to win the race.
Indy is that rarest of high holy grounds, the kind that can so ruthlessly rip out your heart.
Inside. It's yellow.
Yet still lure you back for more. That's why so many have returned over the decades. Most of their identities lost to time.
Checkered flag is in the air.
Only that chosen, timeless few have had their faces forever frozen in a silver-plated joy. The barrier between standing among the legends or vanishing among the lost is as thin as an eye blink.
He looks for a place to come by. That was the most fabulous finish I've ever seen.
You just don't know what Indy means.
Thank the racing gods that you have been here to witness it. We thank them that we have been here to witness it with you. Yes, these walls can talk. They have seen so much. So what will we see together today?
We've been witness to Elio's climbing of the fence 3 times when Alexander Rossi won the 100th. Hunter Ray's 2014 win. How about Sato's redemption in the pouring of the milk over their heads by both Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan? Jan Beekes.
And Nicole, former winner Tony Kanaan, of course, has switched teams now with AJ Foyt Racing. It seems like with all the smiles around Indy, it's been a good fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, we worked really hard over the winter. AJ and the ABC boys gave us all the tools, so hopefully we'll make it happen today. You know, we have a little bet going on, and we'll see. The bet will be, if I win this race, AJ's got to kiss me before the princess.
Wow. When you won here in 2013, don't know how to react to the old kiss situation, but when you won in 2013, it was 68 degrees. You never changed the car the whole day. You said in these temperatures, it's going to be a different game today.
Extremely concerning. I think everybody's not comfortable and everybody's worried. I talked to the guys in the green room. There's the 33 guys. We don't know what to do. We don't know what's going to happen. We haven't been in these conditions ever the entire month. This is the hottest 500 since 1937, so we're going to earn our money today.
All right, and Nicole, of course, he's known as the Iron Man. It's a perfect day to have triathlon experience on this warm day.
Kisses, Nick.
Chevrolet Silverados lead the way for the ceremonial military lap. Chevy and its dealers proudly support all of those who serve. For more information, go to ChevySalutes.com. When we come back, Indy is speed, Indy is the milk, but it's also about the pomp and circumstance of a day unlike any other in sports. We have that for you live next on ABC. Andretti Autosport has won this race 3 out of the last 4 years, but no driver named Andretti since 1969. Marco starts 12th. We are getting close to firing these engines. Let's head trackside. Dave Calabro.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remove your hats for the presentation of the colors and invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, to deliver today's invocation, please welcome Indianapolis Archbishop Charles C. Thompson.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, through all times and seasons, you are with us to guide us with your wisdom and to support us with your providential care. We take a moment this morning to thank you for your many blessings. Help each and every one of us to strive always for the greatest good and to live in such a way that builds up the human family. Today we welcome to our great city those who gather from around the world for the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500. We ask you to bless the drivers, their teams, the officials, and the fans as you promise to hold us in your loving hands. Help them to be safe in this track and through the road of life. On this Memorial Day weekend, we commemorate your eternal care, the men and women who have died serving our country and the armed forces, and by their example, continue to show us the way to service, to a dedicated to the tasks that remain before us. God bless those who have died for our freedom. God bless all those gathered here for the greatest spectacle in racing. God bless America.
Order! Hold! Right? Hey! Stand by. Ready? Ready? Aim! Pop! Ready? Aim! Pop! Ready? Aim! Pop! Ready? Present! Or!
in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet
Ladies and gentlemen, God Bless America. Performed by Indiana's own singer, songwriter, and recording artist, John McLaughlin.
Memorial Day tends to remind us what we have: family and friends and fellowship and fun. But its greatest impact and true importance lies in what we don't have: the men and women who died to give us this life. Think about that. They literally gave their lives to preserve our most valuable asset: freedom. We spend this day celebrating however we please. Never ever forget it or forsake it. We live in the greatest nation on earth, and the men and women of the United States Armed Forces who died fighting for us are the reason why. They are a testament to our most honorable values: selflessness and sacrifice. Be thy brother's keeper, no matter the cost. For more than a century, the Indianapolis 500 has provided an international stage to say thank you for that ultimate sacrifice. To always remind us that freedom is very costly. The Indy 500 is a day to celebrate tradition and history and family and fast cars. But it's also a day to remember why you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, please rise and remove your hats as Grammy Award-winning Atlantic Records artist Kelly Clarkson performs our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rock along, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You're watching ESPN on ABC.
500 miles. A daunting terrestrial journey, no matter where you are. Back home in Indiana lies an enormously famous 500 miles, the Indy 500. The spectacle to end all spectacles. The race all other races wish they could be. And while every mile of this American thrill ride has been run on this oval, this race lives everywhere. All you need is someone with a little speed in their soul. From the short tracks of Brazil, where Tony Kanaan began making turns toward his Indy dream, to the Illinois bedroom of a race-obsessed young girl, hoping to cap her career today with the prize she's had her eyes on forever.
The Indianapolis 500 trophy. That's my goal.
It is the ride of a lifetime, using mechanical beasts that meld art and science so drivers can experience calamity like this. And not only walk away, but come back for more. And come they do from every corner of the globe to chase history, forged by legends you can't forget. While the exclusive four-timers Foyt, Unser, and Mears beckon a current icon to climb into their club. It's a race stretching beyond distance and across time, over 100 years, to the clay blocks that provide the very foundation of this event and its ever-present nickname, the Brickyard. It is the ultimate test, an event like no other.
It sounds like there's some tears in your voice right now. You just don't know what Indy means.
A journey of 500 miles, but a race for the ages.
Welcome to the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500, telecast presented by Firestone. Tonight on ESPN, it's SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt. You'll have complete coverage from all that goes down here today in the race, as well as my Sunday conversation with the winner. It's SportsCenter tonight with SVP following Game 7 between the Cavs and the Celtics. Scott Goodyear, Eddie Cheever, and Alan Bestwick. They are the men, the voice behind this race. I don't know if you know this. It's getting a little warm down here on the grid. I, for one, actually hope it stays that way.
It's going to be just one element to what will be a very fascinating day on the racetrack, Nicole. Thank you. Scott, let's start with this new for 2018 generation of an Indy car, designed to have less downforce pressing the car to the track. What does it mean for the drivers in the race?
Well, I'll tell you, the drivers in the race today, Alan, wish that this was probably not the year that they brought this new car, because the temperature is going to make this car very difficult to drive. We heard that from Tony Kanaan earlier. The car is going to have less grip to the road. So almost like you're driving along on a pavement on a road, and all of a sudden you end up on gravel. Your car doesn't have as much grip. That's what these guys are going to be experiencing today, over 500 miles. The performance, the consistency is what these guys are going to be chasing. Listen for them screaming in their radio to the teams, I need some changes. The car's not handling. And we've all done this, Eddie. You and I have talked about this before. We've raced in 70, 80 degree temperature, 90 we'd never experienced. I'm glad I'm in here and not out there this year.
And not to mention there's air conditioning in here.
Yeah.
Eddie, the temperature, you heard Tony Kanaan say it a little bit earlier. How difficult a race will this be on the drivers with the temperature this warm?
Well, it's difficult when you start a race with a car that you're not that used to. But what you've done now is you've thrown a wrench in the system, because there's even less grip than there was before. If we remember all the races we've seen this year, this new car, it's been very exciting, but it's been at slower circuits. We are now at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you are never underneath 215 miles an hour. And when you make a mistake here, it can get really ugly really quickly.
Well, the bottom line on today's race is unpredictability. No one is exactly sure how it's going to unfold behind the wheel. It'll be fascinating for us to watch and find out. So a race so much built on tradition. You've heard some of them discussed earlier. A swig of milk, a kiss of a brick. You've seen some of them unfold already down trackside with the playing of taps and the remembrance of those who serve and have served. after 500 miles, very difficult miles. Someone is going to continue on those traditions with the laurel wreath around their neck, that celebration in Victory Lane, the ride around the speedway in the convertible before the fans, and their life changed forever as being an Indianapolis 500-mile race winner. But all of that comes after our last couple of traditions that lead us up to the start of engines and the green flag.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indiana University grad Jim Cornelison and the Purdue All-American Marching Band performing Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana. And now, time for the most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome Hallman & Company Chairman Tony George.
Drivers, start your engines.
What's this moment like for the driver? Just think about what you have to do.
Yeah, it was always a time that you had to turn around and have the opportunity to really make sure that you made the right decision going into turn one. We've been out of the car for a couple of days, rushing into turn one at 200 miles an hour with 32 other cars, 3 wide. The only place in the world where we have a 3 wide start. No room for error going into turn one today.
But you are on automatic. You cannot program anything for those first 2 laps.
You see them clearing away the last of the pre-race staging, and then the cars will roll away. Will everyone get away? It seems like every year there's one car that doesn't get away from the grid cleanly. Showed you the starting lineup in the driver introductions earlier, but by way of review, here it comes across the top of your screen. The 11 rows of 3, headed by pole sitter Ed Carpenter as the field screams away. There's the Honda 2-seater leading the field. Mario Andretti, the 1969 winner, behind the wheel. Riding in the back seat, musician, actor, producer Nick Cannon, getting the thrill of his life. For more Honda racing content, go to hondaracing.com. Alexander Rossi, the 2016 winner, way back in 32nd, the middle of the last row on the grid. He has our Auto Nation on board. If he's going to win today, he's going to have to make history, because no one has ever won the race from that far back, and yet a lot of folks that do such things seem to like him. Here's Graham Rahal. Graham's got a lot of work to do as well. He's got our United Rentals on board in 30th on the grid. Ed Jones finished 3rd last year in his Indy debut. He's got the NTT data camera with him starting back in 29th. Jay Howard makes his third start in the 500 from 28th position, carrying the Arrow on board. Ohio's Zach Veach in his second 500, starting 25th with the relay onboard camera. And one of 4 first-timers in the field, Canada's Robert Wickens, starting 18th with the Lucas Oil on board. Last year's winner, Takuma Sato, starts 16th with the Honda on board. Last time a winner went back-to-back, 01 and 02. It was Elio that did it then. The last 2 straight years and 3 of the last 4, it's the Andretti Autosport team that has won this race. They have 6 cars in the field for this one.
And of course, out of those 6 cars, you've already documented the 2 former winners, Ryan Hunter-Reay and Alexander Rossi. But leading the way for Andretti Autosport in qualifying was Marco Andretti. He also has the fastest practice lap of the entire field. Marco says, I like this bodywork. I like a car that's difficult to drive. And remember, Marco is trying to bring the Andretti name to victory lane as a driver. The last time that happened, his grandfather Mario in 1969.
Marco carrying an AutoNation on board, highest qualified of the Andretti Armada. Hunter-Reay also with an AutoNation on board today. So there is where the Andretti Autosport Hondas will start. Will they find a way to the front again in this race like they've done the last couple of years? How about the third row and the star power here?
Think about Danica Patrick. Came here 13 years ago. She will retire from IndyCar racing here today. Only fitting she drives number 13. She wants to win an Indy 500, just like Elio and Scott Dixon, the 2 other drivers in her row.
Scott Dixon carrying a Honda on board. 4th all-time in IndyCar wins. Won this race in 2008. Looked pretty good in practice to me. His team won the pit stop competition on Carb Day. The chief mechanic for the team and the outside front tire changer, Blair Julian, will carry our over-the-wall camera. You'll get a look at a race car coming at you on a pit stop at 60 miles an hour. Elio Castroneves carrying the Pennzoil on board in the yellow submarine paint scheme.
This is my favorite for the race. It's great to see him back. And he has that little special motivation. He's the only human alive that stands the chance of adding himself to that amazing list of Foyt, Unser, and Rick Mears.
Doc?
You know, for Elio Castroneves, age is just a number, but probably a number that contributed to last year being his 20th and final season full-time in IndyCar Series racing. But thanks to the loyalty and love of longtime car owner Roger Penske, he is back this year with a chance of making Indy history. You see, back on May 10th, Elio turned 43. And to him, that number is an omen. Yeah, 3 is the number of times he's won this race, also the number of times he's finished second. And 4, that's what he's about today, hoping to become just the 4th driver to win it 4 times. Now, just before climbing in the car a moment ago, he said, Doc, I want you to tell the fans this for me, and I quote, if you're looking for someone to cheer for, pick me, because today I have 1 more race to win and 1 final fence to climb.
Sure would be fun to see. Danica Patrick in the final race of her driving career, starting 7th today. Rick?
Well, when it comes to IndyCar, Danica Patrick is a finisher. When she left the series 7 years ago, she had set the record for the most consecutive finishes, made it to the checkered flag 50 times in a row. But as any race driver will tell you, that's not enough. You also need to be fast to win this race. And this month, the Ed Carpenter team has given her a fast car. So let's think about this. A person who can finish with a fast car, that could make this a very memorable last race for Danica Patrick.
Sure could. Josef Newgarden, last year's Verizon IndyCar Series champ, carrying a Verizon onboard, finished 3rd 2 years ago. Will Power has a Verizon onboard, the 2015 runner-up, winner of the Grand Prix to start the month of May here at the Speedway. And Power, one of those 4 powerful Penske entries, all qualified in the top 8 starting spots. And the field gets the 1 to go signal, leading the field to 2019 Corvette ZR1. For more information on the Corvette ZR1, go to Chevy.com/ZR1. Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers, driving, certainly endeared himself to the locals around here with his leadership and his play for the Pacers this season. Doing a nice job out in front of the field. Our track facts now presented by Firestone. 200 laps around the 2.5-mile track to make up the 500-mile distance. And the pit strategy, because of this new car and the heat and the tire wear and so on, is a variable factor on the day. We'll talk about that as the race gets going. Spanish version of the race presented by ESPN Deportes. You can access it by using the SAP function on your remote control. And with that, we're half a lap away from the start. You met Chris Hemsworth earlier. The Marvel's Avengers series played James Hunt in the movie Rush. He's ready, green flag in hand. And he will wave it over the field of 33 when they come around 2 final corners. Some 300,000 here on a steaming hot day for the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. How's it going to play out, and who's going to win it? Time to start finding out. Carpenter's going to lead lap 1.
Big sigh of relief when they make it through the first 2 corners without any accidents. That has been a very busy first lap.
What I noticed on that on the turn 1, if you saw a car going around the outside, none other than Tony Kanaan taking advantage of either a start or a restart. One of the bravest, and he went around the outside and moved up a couple of spots.
Willpower 12, Simon Pagenaud, and the Neon 22 taking a look for second spot.
Penske teammates, and Roger said the other day during a press conference, he said, we tell our drivers to take care of each other for the first 180 laps, and there's no team orders. The last 20 laps, you go racing. You got to get to the end, though.
There's Pagenaud again inside of power for second. He'll get that in turn 1. Matheus Leist, the rookie, with a bid for a spot that he gets down into the corner.
Just think about what it's like for Matheus Leist. Yes, he's raced here before. He's won the Freedom 100, but when you get to an Indy car, he says it's so much faster. The short chutes don't even seem like straightaways. Great leadership from the team on the ABC team, but also having a teammate like Tony Kanaan in your stable. He said, I have learned so much from Tony. It seems like I've cut 2 years off my rookie stripes.
That is absolutely true, but you cannot teach somebody what it's going to feel like when you do those first 2 or 3 laps at the start of Indy 500. There is so much turbulence that you're just trying to get around the track without making any mistakes. Just about now, everybody is starting to settle in. They know what their car is feeling like, and they're starting to get used to finding a rhythm that will be with them throughout the rest of the race.
Helio Castroneves driving the 3 for Team Penske, sitting in 8th position, looking for that 4th 500 victory. '23 is Charlie Kimball picking up a spot. Kimball moving up to the 17th position. Here's what a lot of the drivers were saying after the carb day practice when it was hot out, and really the first time they've gotten to run this 2018 chassis style in the hot temperatures. They said it's going to be an opportunistic race. It's going to be a very technical race, a tactical race. They said on the start, when you got fresh tires, you're going to have to go as hard as you can. You're going to have to try and get as many positions as you can, because as you get more laps on the tires and as the heat builds through the day, the handling is going to be difficult to manage, and you might have to just dial the fuel back and ride for a little bit and preserve track position and save some things.
Actually, when you say save some things, you talk about dialing the fuel back. They have a knob on their steering wheel that they can trim the fuel back, almost like you would do it on an airplane. So instead of running 100% fuel, they can slot back to maybe 98, 95% and get better fuel mileage, maybe make an extra lap on every run that they are out there on the racetrack. But the limiting factor, because of the heat, as you mentioned, Alan, right now, all the drivers are on uncharted territory because the tire wear, and they think that the tires might start to go off somewhere around lap 15 19 or 20, and you can go 30, maybe 32 on a fuel load.
It's not that they're going to wear through the tires, but they're going to give up enough grip that it's going to make it really tricky in these conditions. So we're underway with a clean start to the Indy 500. The last couple of years, we've run almost a quarter of the race before we've gotten the first yellow. We'll see if that's what happens today. Green start to the Indianapolis 500. Ed Carpenter has led every lap from pole position. Simon Pagenaud, Will Power, Josef Newgarden, Sebastian Bourdais are the top 5. Talked about some of the pit tactics and the tactical race we might see today. Jan Biekes can add more on that.
Yes, and if you look at the pit windows as far as when you would stop on track, on the left-hand side, you can see you can make one less pit stop if you saved a little bit of fuel like Scott Goodyear was talking about. However, if you want to have your strategy for the day to have fresh Firestones throughout the race, you could stop earlier. You have one more stop in your future, but why are we looking at this now? Well, it may only be lap 12 at the moment, but we'll see these cars and teams play their hand. If they stop between 20 and 30, we know they're looking after tires. If they stop after that, up to lap 33, even 34, we know they're on a fuel save strategy. I think today we're going to see a little of each, Doc.
And guys, Ed Carpenter knows that if the car stays up front, that's where the clean air is. The car handles best. Here's the downside. They told him, by being up front, you're going to burn a lot of extra fuel, probably lose us a lap, maybe 2 laps, having to pit shorter than everyone else. They have just told Ed Carpenter the guys behind him are probably being really smart and saving some fuel. So now you got to start thinking about that, Ed. We're up front. We want to stay there for clean air, but you got to really watch the fuel. You may start trimming it back.
Hey, think about it. The object is to cover the 500 miles in the shortest amount of time. The more time you're sitting still getting refueled, that's adding to the equation. These engineers and strategists on the timing stands are going to have their work cut out for them today.
We only really know how much more fuel Ed Carpenter is running after this first stop, because I don't think the cars are close enough in the tow to have that big of a gain, because Pagenaud is really not closing the gap as they would have done in the past. So it's really going to be tricky. As for tire degradation, we don't see any lack of performance at all. They seem to just keeping the same pace. Ed is definitely in control of this race right now, because you would have thought that Pagenaud would have tried to get closer to see how his car would handle, and he hasn't.
So looking at some people that have moved up and dropped back off the start, Danica Patrick has slipped back 5 positions from her grid spot of 7th. She's back in 12th, Rick.
Yeah, and she's already come on the radio and talked about the fact that the car is getting understeer. In fact, we're hearing that from a lot of the drivers who are radioing back to their team saying that they're getting understeer. And they've already talked about the fact that in this next pit stop, they're potentially looking at doing a wing adjustment on the front end of the car to try to counteract that. So understeer, it's not steering hard enough when you go into the turn. Imagine you're on ice and you're turning that left turn, and instead you're skating out towards the wall. That's not what a driver wants.
Yeah, Rick, and we're also seeing on the telemetry and listening as we're on board with Danica how much she had to lift off the throttle to go through the corner in turns 3 and 4. Let's see it again.
That's all the way off. That's not lifting. That's taking your foot off the throttle. Now watch how much steering movement she has.
That means it's a very nervous race car anytime you're jostling with the steering wheel like that. But let's not forget also, we had rain in the overnight, washed some of the rubber off the racetrack. This racetrack is different than the last time they drove on the final practice on Friday.
What really shocks me about her lifting is she has clean air in front of her. There aren't any cars in front of her, so she doesn't have to go through turbulent air. If she gets up somebody else's gearbox, it'll be much worse.
Zach Veach and Max Chilton have slipped back 6 and 7 spots, respectively, in these opening laps. Now, here's the big mover in the early laps. This is Graham Rahal. Rahal, who started all the way back in 30th position. He's picked up 7 spots now, and he's running in 23rd. Watch him at the start of the race here.
Getting a draft with 2 cars in front, wisely chooses the high line. Now he's a spotter. You can hear that spotter on his radio, standing right up there on the right-hand side in turn 3, high above, can see exactly what's going on. Radios to the drivers to tell them whether they are clear and lets them know where the safe portion is on the racetrack. Rick?
Well, inside the cars, they have what they call tools. The ability to change some of the suspension settings. Not a lot, but they can do them. The team just came on Danica Patrick's radio and asked, are the tools working? And she said, not really. As a result, they said, well, we'll also try a tire pressure adjustment when they come in. I remember talking with Tony Kanaan before the race about the fact that they need those tools. And he said there aren't going to be enough ways to make those changes in this car at this race.
All right, Rick, thanks. So as Graham Rahal continues to try and dig forward, we look at the front of the field to see whether some of these cars will commit to that stop shorter for fresher tires strategy that Jan described a minute ago. Just for perspective on pace, by the way, with the heat and race conditions and so on, Ed Carpenter, the leader of the race, is running a full 1 second slower than the bulk of the pack did on Carb Day on Friday.
I think that's because of the heat, but what's very impressive with Ed Carpenter, his times are extremely consistent. When your tires fall off, you start to see a variation in your speed. Some laps will be quicker, but they tend to always keep dropping off. He is in complete control of this race right now.
So who commits to the earlier stops? Who stays out until the full load of fuel is burned up? We'll find out in these next 10 minutes or so at the Indianapolis 500. The Indianapolis 500, telecast presented by Firestone. We've already burned through 50 miles, a little better than that. Clear so far, no caution flags, and Ed Carpenter leading all of the laps from his pole position after he got the jump on the initial start. Will Power is running in third position. A look from his onboard camera and a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile to access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter and more, only on Verizon. We've got a little radio for you here.
Fuel 95 or 118 for 5 stops, all green. Not telling you to go for those, just keep in touch with these guys. Just information there.
That might as well have been Chinese for us, because I have no idea what those numbers meant, but it definitely was a fuel discussion and strategy. So he has a number that he has to reach.
Well, they will never let, even when you ask the teams, what they explain on the radio to the drivers is a code. And so that driver will go along and turn around and make the selection on the knob of the steering wheel to exactly where the teams tell them, saving a little bit of fuel. Now, we have to remember that all these cars have real-time telemetry, so everything that's going on in these cars, almost 100 mouth channels, gets beamed back to the pit lane to all the engineers sitting on pit lane so they can see in their computers exactly what's going on with the car. One of them, obviously, is fuel mileage, along with tire pressure, and amongst other things, they'll come up with a strategy for the race itself for their driver.
Get back into the field a little bit. 19 is Zachary Clayman DeMello, one of the rookie drivers in the field, followed by 6, Robert Wickens. There's Clayman DeMello out of Montreal. Was not supposed to be in this race. That was supposed to be Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of the two-time winner. But Fittipaldi injured in a sports car racing crash over at Spa-Francorchamps. I talked to him in the Gasoline Alley area yesterday. He had surgery. He's here. He's moving around. His rehab's going well. He expects to be back in the IndyCar Series by the Mid-Ohio race this summer, which would be a terrific recovery from what was an awful crash. There's Wickens. There's Munoz. Carlos Munoz.
The biggest difference I've noticed from the last 4 years is the cars cannot get as close in the corners as they had done in the past. And because of that, it's very difficult to draft past anybody because you're not accelerating off the corner faster than the car that's in front of you. So this is going to play a lot into how this race ends.
And I think you're exactly right. And I think the other thing that we're seeing right now, I mentioned that it rained in the overnight, took some of the rubber off the racetrack. Cars are going to be a little different than what they finish up with on the final practice on Friday. They'll be tuning on those cars. We talked about, as Rick mentioned, some of the tools inside there. They can change the weight distribution of the car by pushing a button on the steering wheel and also move the roll bars in the car front and rear. Now, you and I have roll bars on a road car. They're non-adjustable. Drivers tune their cars to the conditions. After every stop, I think we're going to see the pace start to pick up.
And let's talk about the engine battle. Of the top 8 cars, 7 of them are Chevys and only one with Bourdais in 5th place is a Honda.
Graham Rahal picking up another spot.
And I'm not so sure James Davison did not have a problem up there in turn 3 or 4. He looked very slow off the pace, maybe got some dirty air from the car in front and ended up going up the road. These cars, they have that understeer, and you can see
this is not where you want. This is not where you want to get off the throttle. You're right. He absolutely had something. What was all that about?
What's up with Davison's car?
situation is he was on the radio early on saying that the car was loose. They said, hang in there, hang in there. We're seeing an example of what happens if you hang in there too long. If you have one end that's not working, it goes away in a hurry. James Davidson, a classic example.
It's J.R. Hildebrand in the blue, orange, and white car that just picked up a spot on Charlie Kimball in that corner. Davison, of course, has crashed once already in the week this week. A heavy crash. Left him battered pretty good as he's going to lose a spot here to Oriol Servia.
He's created an enormous bottleneck behind him.
And Eddie, you know what ends up happening when a car goes back in front of you. Your car gets to be more nervous, more undrivable. So every time a car passes him, he has more risk to actually lose control of the car. But you're right, the bottleneck behind him has created just a traffic jam.
And the leader is catching the tail end of the field. And that's Ed Carpenter at the back of that pack, right behind the double wide.
And watch for Ed to pit. He won't want to be wasting time here. He'll slip into the pits, I'm sure.
Danica Patrick, the first one to pit. Rick?
Yeah, early on, Jan was talking about the question, do you go for fuel or do you go for tires? Well, in this case, it's tires and the concern about the balance of the car. They were concerned about that. As a result, they said they're going to take half a turn of wing out and send her back out. There you see they make that adjustment and send her back out into this race.
Boy, Davidson sure is changing the complexion of this race early on. Right now, Carpenter has to find a way to carve his way through all those cars. If not, he'll get passed by Pagenaud.
Here's Tony Kanaan in.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan, remember, he was fastest on Carb Day, the last practice before we got to the Indy 500. They're going to make a wing adjustment on his car as well. Hasn't been saying an awful lot about the car in terms of its condition, other than it's time to make a minor change. Nice clean stop.
And Rick mentioned that wing change. Tony Kanaan was probably complaining about understeer. Well, the front doesn't react. The wing change will take care of that.
Here come the leaders to pit road. Simon Pagenaud, Ed Carpenter, both in. A few others followed them in. Castroneves will also come in. Back of that line, that's Charlie Kimball in between Pagenaud and Castroneves. Rick?
Simon Pagenaud bringing the car down. He was very happy on Friday. In fact, he said he had about a car that was about a 95 out of 100 in terms of where it was going to go and what it was going to do. He has not been complaining much about the car overall, but still a minor wing change. Doc?
Front wing change for Ed Carpenter, a little bit to try to help the understeer in the corner. Carpenter away, he will go out in front of Pagenaud. Ed Carpenter has not complained one bit about the car, but they're trying to think ahead. That's why they made the front wing change, to be able to get a little more front steer in the car in traffic.
Josef Newgarden took over the lead when Pagenaud and Carpenter pitted. Now Newgarden is on the pit lane along with a whole host of others. Power, Bourdais, Dixon, Marco Andretti, Ryan Hunter-Reay all in on this stop. There is Newgarden.
Defending series champion Josef Newgarden, they've commented a little bit about making a wing change. Now they're saying a half a turn of front wing. They said air pressure. No, it'll be air pressure only on the side for Newgarden, trying to help the car turn a little bit with air pressure only.
Dixon is away. That's Bourdais fitting back into line ahead of Marco Andretti. Spencer Pigot has taken over the lead by not pitting yet. Can't cross that line between the turns 1 and 2 areas on the warm-up lane with all 4 tires. You can put the left side tires all the way over on that line, but you can't have all 4 across it. Blair Julian just changed the outside front tire on Scott Dixon's car. Here's what it looks like at Indianapolis. We'll come back after a word from your ABC station. Just about 100 miles into the Indianapolis 500-mile race through the first round of green flag pit stops, and Ed Carpenter has maintained the lead. He's up by a second and a third on Tony Kanaan, with Josef Newgarden, Simon Pagenaud, and Helio Castroneves rounding out the top 5. A penalty just served by Kyle Kaiser in the 32 for hitting personnel on pit road. He just made a pass-through penalty and has served that penance.
And back to Carpenter, he just did the fastest lap of the race with a 2:23.7. So he definitely has a car to dominate today. He did his first pit stop without having any problems.
New tires, adjustment with the wing, and all of a sudden the car's now settled in. Rubber's coming on the racetrack. As I mentioned, starting to see those speeds start to increase. Tune your car all day long. Report back to the pits what your car is doing. The engineers can see that through that real-time telemetry I spoke about. The winner today is going to be tuning on his car, chasing track conditions and weather conditions all day long.
Right now, I don't see anybody that can touch Ed.
Hey guys, one of the reasons they think the team thinks Ed Carpenter was going to be good and now he is good today is because remember back on pole day when everything is on the edge, he said when the car's on the ragged edge and grip is minimal and the track is slippery, our guy, Ed Carpenter, goes out there and turns laps at 230 miles an hour. He is fearless and he finds a way to make the car fast when you have minimal to no grip. We think this is going to be his kind of day. It's hot, the tires are hot, grip is minimal, and guess what? So far, they're right.
Well, so many people have so much passion for this place, but for Ed, it is deeply personal. You see his finishes in the last few years when he started on the front row. He's not been able to put together the result on race day that he's wanted. Once was in contention, got swept up in a crash by another driver. Others had a mechanical issue, but today hoping to put all 500 miles together and score what would be obviously a massive win.
Every lap he does in the lead is one more lap of confidence that he's building into himself that will come in very handy at the end of the race if he still has a strong car.
And the true question right now is when you start to get up to the traffic that he's running up to now, the cars that are at the back end of the grid, once he gets close to them, he will now find out how his car works in that traffic, that disturbed air. Now, with this new car, with the reduced downforce, that's when the cars are at their worst. This is going to be the test for Ed Carpenter.
I totally agree. And I remember a race where that happened. I think it was 94 or 95, where you could not get by anybody because you could not get close enough in the corner. So this is the last big hurdle speed-wise that he's going to have to jump over because you will be in traffic the whole time. He could lose 3 or 4 miles an hour easily behind a car that he can't pass.
So you see Carpenter, then the lap car of Oriol Servia, that white car. Then Tony Kanaan, the former winner, up to second after starting back in 10th. Mentioned he made some bold moves on the first lap, and Rick, they got the pit strategy and the pit stop executed just right as well.
Well, exactly, and it's interesting because on Carb Day I was talking to Tony Kanaan about the car. Going in, he said, we're just a couple of adjustments away from having the car exactly where I want it. And even if we don't have it, it'll still be a good car. After Carb Day, I went up to him, I said, hey, how is it? Did those adjustments work? He goes, I'm not telling you. I have a feeling that means they worked.
That's funny. Of course, Kanaan driving this year for A.J. Foyt. A.J. here, looking for what would be his third win as an entrant in the 500, surviving another bout with those killer bees that he seems to keep stumbling across on his ranch outside of Houston. No, I'm talking about passion for this place. Can you imagine how happy A.J. Foyt would be to give Tony Kanaan that big old kiss on the cheek if they're standing in victory lane at the Indy 500?
And how happy Kanaan would be
yes,
to get that big bear hug from A.J. here at the 500.
Long way to go before that happens. Just past 100 miles in the race. Ed Carpenter out in front.
And guess who it is?
Right behind.
Who is the other car? Yellow is out at Indianapolis. James Davison has crashed in turn number 4. There's another car down on the inside of the track as well. And our first yellow of the race comes out at lap number 47 of 200. Davison, we saw, was in a whole lot of trouble, and that trouble just became terminal to his race. Is that Takuma Sato down on the inside caught up in it?
Yes, it is.
All right, here's what happened.
It was just a question of time when that was going to happen. You can't be running that much slower than anybody else.
You know, I really don't understand that because he is so far off of pace that he's got to know that he is in the way, and the car wasn't right, and he came in for a pit stop. He went back out. At that speed, Eddie, that is so far off the pace. You need, if you had more experience, you'd be coming in the pit lane saying, change the car, fix the car. Watch from Takuma Sato.
That's such a pity and such a waste for both of them. All they should have done was called him in Try to fix the car. If it was loose, do something, even if it takes 2 or 3 laps.
Big bunch up here. Watch Davidson. Inside.
Oh, absolutely brilliant driving. How cold-blooded was that? He waited the whole time to see where they were going to go, and then right at the end, he made the right decision. But Sato had no place to go.
You hang that one on the 33 with Davison because it just makes me mad that he stays out in the racetrack like that.
Yeah, but that's more from the pits should be calling him in. He's doing everything he can to keep obviously a loose car on the track, but you could tell where he was getting passed. He was getting passed between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. In all the years I've raced here, I've maybe had to pass 2 cars in 15 years.
Well, maybe hoping for a caution to get a chance to make some adjustments on that car without losing so much time, but unfortunately the caution was him, and so the first yellow of the race is out for James Davison and Takuma Sato, whose races end in a crash in turns 3 and 4. Pit road is closed while they pick up some of the debris and where the cars have come to rest on the racetrack. Now the pits will be open as they have a clear enough scene. We'll see if people come back down the pit lane now. I expect they will. Been about 20 laps since the beginning of the round of green flag pit stops, and about 15 since most of the leaders came down the pit road.
And another update on the engine competition. The top 7 are Chevys. Then we have 4 Hondas.
2 manufacturers in the series. Last year Honda with a decided leg up on Chevrolet in steam under the engine cover. This year Chevrolet came back and said, we found something.
I think they said no more of that. And when they came back, they have just a little bit more.
We match you and raise you.
Yes. and do not think that Honda's just going to sit around and accept that they'll do a little more, and then the other one will do a little more.
That's what competition is about, right?
And that's what the Indianapolis 500 is about. Power and aerodynamics.
AMR safety team out picking up all the pieces. And you see they work to remove the 2 cars. So here they come to the opening of the pit lane. Ed Carpenter will head left, as will the other lead lap cars for the most part. Yellow flag stops sometimes lead to contact on pit road. This pit lane is very narrow. When you get a lot of cars in there at the same time, watch the pit exits and see if somebody's race gets ruined there. Rick?
Well, Tony Kanaan bringing the car down. One of the discussions before he got here was whether to do a wing adjustment. He said there's understeer in the car. At first they said yes, then they decided not to do a wing adjustment because they want to get him out as quickly as possible. Doc?
Understeer for both Josef Newgarden and Ed Carpenter. Said it wasn't too bad. Carpenter said only in turn 3 where I'm having an issue. The critical part is to beat everyone off pit road, and that's exactly what the 20 car has done.
That's the advantage of being the last exit, isn't it? He only had like 10 feet to go before he crossed that line, and it was close.
Honda race off pit road. Carpenter holding the lead. Good stop and by Will Power's crew to try and gain some of the track position they lost in that last cycle of the race. Trouble in turns 3 and 4 brings out the first yellow of the Indianapolis 500.
Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're under caution for the first time. Zachary Clayman DeMello out front under alternate pit strategy. We've been granted incredible access up at the top of the pagoda. No one gets to come here. In fact, there are only about 6 other people up here right now. I should tell you 2 of them happen to be members of the Team Penske higher-ups, and Bud Denker and Jonathan Gibson. But this gives you an idea of the scope of the Speedway. You can see the snake pit over there, that gigantic stage. There is a concert taking place in the snake pit in the middle of this race. You can see the golf course, the Brickyard Crossing golf course. There are full holes located inside. Turn 2, the Indianapolis the skyline over there, you can see turn 2. In fact, this is one of the only places in the entire track where you can be and see all 4 corners of the Speedway. Incredible access. We'll continue to show that, and we'll continue to show you the live action from the Speedway under caution for the first time. We'll be back to the 102nd running of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway when we come back. Here's what happened between Davis and Sato. We'll be back in a few.
So the new leader of the race is Zach Clayman DeMello, the rookie from Montreal, whose team did not pit under this yellow. Rick?
Well, that's exactly right. I was talking with the strategist, Michael Cannon. I said, why didn't you bring him in? He said, well, first off, we really didn't have to come in. Second off, my goal is to get him up front. He believes that it's so hard to pass. He said he needs him up front. And he said, my theory is I get him up front, and then I figure out how to keep him out front later on.
It's kind of hard to do when you're running out of fuel.
Just his 6th IndyCar start and his first start in the 500. There's Ed Carpenter right behind him. Elio Castroneves back in 9th. Doc?
Bit of an issue here for one of the favorites in Elio Castroneves. As you see what they're trying to do here, they're going to change the fuel hoses. Elio came in and the car would not accept fuel. They weren't sure if it was something wrong with the dry brake on the car. Now they've determined they think it's the fueling system here, and there's an issue with the nozzle. So they have talked it over with Roger. Roger told me that they waited long enough to get it full of fuel, but they're going to change the hose.
All right, Doc, thanks. Green flag, here we go. Here's Carpenter inside, Canaan looking outside of Clayman DeMello in turn 1.
That's the perfect move for Ed Carpenter. He's putting a distance between him and everybody else.
And there goes Tony Kanaan to the inside. Remember, everybody's on fresh tires, so the tires have a lot more grip with those Firestones. For Clayman DeMello, used tires, and he's going to get past very often here very quickly.
But it's going to be touchy for the drivers to work their way around him.
You have to be patient here. Boy, they sure are using up all of the road coming out of 2 and 3 and 4.
Here comes Josef Newgarden. He'll get through.
He had to muscle his way through. You see the car starting to move around just a little bit, that disturbed air, even beside some battling now. Ryan Hunter-Reay going past the PNC machinist Scott Dixon. We're on board with Scott right now.
Here's Simon Pagenaud hopping on a line. He'll get by Clayman DeMello. Couple things here. People, this comes back to the urgency on starts and restarts that people talked about, right? Get what you can while the field is bunched up, because once it spreads out, it's going to be harder to get a draft. Look at that. Piggott moving to the inside of the 21. Hunter-Reay has to back off, trying to find a way around him. It's going to be harder to get those spots once the cars spread out in line. So when everything is still bunched up and people have to check up for other cars, get all you can. That's a level of aggression that's only going to grow the later in the race we get.
But Alan, the level of danger.
Caution, trouble, Ed Jones. Off of turn 2. Last year, such a spectacular performance as a 500 rookie, qualified 11th, finished 3rd. Said this year, everyone's been chasing a feeling that just doesn't exist in this car, myself included. That's not the feeling you wanted.
I was just finishing, I was trying to finish a sentence before that accident happened, saying the level of danger trying to get past cars in those first 2 laps or first 4 or 5 corners is way higher than when it's just a battle one-on-one with somebody else. Because there's so many things that can go wrong. Now I'm looking forward to see what happened, because the tires are the inside tires that are broken, not the outside tires.
So Jones out of his car, walked away toward the top of the screen. Wow.
Oh, that's just loose. It's gone by the middle of the turn. He's not around anybody. When the back end comes around like that, it's called oversteer. So we're not sure if something broke or if the car was just loose going in to create that oversteer. But now on board, let's ride along and listen.
Wow.
I'm starting to wonder, guys, if maybe something didn't break there, because it was just a very quick little movement in the car. Either that or a very loose race car, and that's when the back end wants to come around, like I mentioned. And you become the passenger, Eddie, at that point in time, and very early in the race. Very disappointing.
He was in a lot of dirty air and very low on the track when that happened.
Was running in 24th position at the time, and so the yellow flag out for a 2nd time in this race. And this is what we talked about. Drivers being aggressive, leading to more yellows, leading to more aggression as people try and take advantage of the passing opportunities under today's extremely hot conditions in the Indy 500. 150 miles into this Indianapolis 500-mile race, couple of incidents. Takuma Sato and James Davison involved in the first one.
James Davison having difficulty with his car off pace. Probably should have thought about coming into pit lane to get the car back up to speed. Takuma Sato coming through the turn, nowhere to go, runs over the back of him, and this could have been a lot worse.
And so Sato's day is done. A few laps after the restart, Ed Jones, trouble in turn 2, put us under caution once again after just 3 laps of racing.
And he just lost control of the car. We don't know if something broke or it was dirty air, but it was just there 1 second and sideways the next.
Oh, yellow.
And let's check in with Jan, who has Takuma Sato.
Well, the good news is that Takuma Sato has been released from the medical center. You're okay, but that looked like a scary moment with a slow car Davison ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, looked like too much closing speed, and by the time I realized I obviously back off everything, I even hit the brake. Just once you get an air pocket like that, it's just suck into it, and really unfortunate situation for both of us, and I really feel sorry for the team and the fans and all the supporters.
I know James feels very bad about it as well, but did you get any warning at all from your spotter that you were closing so fast?
Well, Robert and I were catching on the train in front in the pack, and once he got it, I could see obviously 2 cars in side by side, but by the time maybe James had too much in trouble and he had to back off and on the grey and get into the corner, I think speed differential is way too great, and I tried to avoid everything. Unfortunately, I couldn't avoid it.
Tough day for last year's winner. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, John, thank you. So a look at some numbers from the race so far today. And 5 lead changes and 2 cautions. Again, the car is different this year. Last year, the car punched such a big hole in the air. The draft and the slingshot was everything. The car this year has less of a hole in the air that it punches, and so it's kind of a throwback. The car's look itself is a bit of a throwback, and the way these drivers are having to advance on the track, a bit of a throwback also.
You have to add one thing to that, and you're right about the draft. The other difference is they've taken a lot of downforce out of the car, so it's very hard. You're unstable when you're behind a car that's in front of you in the middle of a corner. It just doesn't handle as well as it did before, so the drivers don't have that downforce to rely on. We've almost gone back to the 90s or earlier, maybe even the mid-80s. There was a time when getting around this circuit without taking your foot off the throttle was almost impossible.
Green flag is out. Tony Kanaan chasing the leader, Ed Carpenter, with a big run.
Crowd erupts anytime Tony Kanaan takes the lead.
Anytime one of Foyt's cars takes the lead. So this is the first hard exam that Ed Carpenter's going to have to deal with. We'll see how he deals with Kanaan.
Hunter Ray and Piggott. Hunter Ray backs off. Didn't quite have the position alongside. That's Sebastian Bourdais. Picking up a spot on Charlie Kimball, a little deeper in line. Bourdais 18, Kimball 23. Robert Wickens right behind them in the 6. Up front, Carpenter for the lead.
Side clear.
Well,
Ed Carpenter, hometown boy, against Tony Kanaan.
That didn't last very long.
Fan favorite driver.
Okay, so you got the jump on me on the restart. I'll show you who's got the horse today.
Yeah.
Restarts are really intense. Look at this. Oh, wow. That's Bourdais and Dixon.
That's 225 miles an hour.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Dixon's tire might have got sliced by the wing. And he's down by the grass. Haven't seen that since Ryan Hunter-Reay was making the move and looking on the high side. Man, I'm glad I'm in the booth today.
Kanaan is hanging with him.
You think about Scott Dixon and what he went through in this race a year ago, and there he is, laying it all out there again. Why? to win the Indianapolis 500. Dixon running in 11th, Ed Carpenter running in 1st. Doc?
Remember we told you Ed Carpenter was trying to save fuel and how important fuel is today. They told him prior to the restart, go to a certain fuel setting which was not full rich. And they thought they could save fuel and hold on to the lead. Well, Tony Kanaan proved that was not the case. So they went back to where they were running, and now the result is Carpenter goes sailing back by. So that fuel-saving experiment on the restart, you checked that one off the list. It didn't work.
But I got to tell you what Kanaan is doing. He's the only one that's managed to stay that close to Carpenter. And if he can do that, he will run at Carpenter's speed, but he'll use a lot less fuel. And if he does that for enough laps, that will be a big advantage.
Here's our Firestone telemetry. Watch the number on that mile per hour down the straightaway into the corner for Kanaan and see how much he lifts.
Lifted a lot, but he's still right there.
And you know, Eddie, that when you get back on it as aggressively as he did right there, you have confidence in the car. You're not tentative with it. That's a good sign. Yes, he got off the throttle, but it's the best that we've seen so far today.
Just a little 230-mile-an-hour Sunday drive into the corner. Trouble, Danica Patrick.
Out of break. Out of break.
And that will be how her driving career at Indianapolis ends. Safety team there. Patrick beginning to climb from the car. Top right.
Very similar to Ed Jones. In the middle of the turn, the back end starts to come around. I thought that she was dealing with a car that was very neutral, too positive on the front. When we watched her earlier in the race, that means it's very difficult to turn into the turn because the back end wants to swap ends. Not sure if that's the case there, but looks very similar, as you mentioned, Eddie, to Ed Jones.
Oh, that's just a loose car. The back end just got away from her. And there's nothing you can do once it goes. You cannot catch it in time. Look how she puts her hands down.
Running in 17th at the time. Another look from Alexander Rossi's on board.
Good job, good job.
That was Alexander Rossi's spotter telling him good job, because he missed the accident. And Bev Patrick, not what they were hoping for today.
But what a career.
Rick?
Well, she had a very lengthy conversation with her crew during that last yellow. They were talking about the car and how it was doing. One of the things she talked about was the fact that it got more unstable as they went into the run. Now, she was talking about understeer initially, but they were saying that she was saying to the team that it was just not doing what she wanted as the run got longer. And as you can see in this point, it did not work for her.
When asked why she came here to finish her career at Indianapolis, Danica said that this was the place. This was the place that that made her relevant. And she said the hesitation was she didn't want to ever take anything away from what she's accomplished here. But she did it because she had time to do it right. She was with a good team, with a good program. You saw that through qualifying. But this is not the way that she would have wanted the day to end. So Danica Patrick riding to the medical center after crashing while running 17th, shy of 200 miles of this Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Today's result does not take anything away from everything that she managed to do in a race car.
So you lead my next question, which is legacy as a race driver. Not many takers at the front of the field. Just Josef Newgarden from third, Clayman DeMello and Wickens. But most of the front runners stayed on the racetrack. We'll pick that up. I'm sure we'll hear from Danica after a bit. First, under caution, for the third time in the Indianapolis 500. We're back after a word from your ABC station. The Snake Pit at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. Our telecast presented by Firestone. A rash of crashes. 3 in 20 laps of racing have put us under the yellow flag for a third time in this race. First, James Davison having problems, and Takuma Sato could not avoid. That was at lap 48.
We saw this one coming 3 or 4 laps earlier, Scott, because he was just going too slow, and sooner or later somebody was going to run into the back of him.
Both cars out of the race. Then 10 laps later at lap 58, Ed Jones found trouble in turn 2.
Got into the middle of the turn, the back end comes around. That's what we call a loose race car or oversteer, almost like you're sliding on ice. And the result was going into the wall, and then he now
has a beaten up race car and is out of the race. Then Danica Patrick at lap 68.
Now this is almost a photocopy of Ed Jones's accident. I don't want to put the finger on something and say it's one reason or another, but these new cars have a lot less downforce. And when you get past center on it and the car loses its balance, it will just come unglued from the track, just like those two did.
Ed Jones has been transported to IU Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, complaining of a headache and neck pain. Further updates as they become available to us. So we're half a lap away from the restart, and we've seen trouble at both ends of the racetrack now. 2 of the incidents in turn 2, 1 of the incidents in turns 3 and 4, although the ones with the cars snapping around by themselves, both in turn number 2. Doc?
Josef Newgarden, one of the few leaders to come in and pit that time, and I asked Tim Cindric, president of Penske Racing, why you pitted off sequence. He said, well, 2 rounds of front wing to help the understeer. He said, but we're in our pit window now. We can make it on 3 more stops, so why not roll the dice and get off sequence a bit? We've changed the front end to make it drive better in traffic, and now we're in our window with just 3 stops left.
Newgarden gave up 3rd position. He'll restart 20th here. Green flag with Carpenter and Kanaan again on a restart.
Really have enough momentum to get around Carpenter? Looks like he does, although Ed had the inside line.
Will Power around Simon Pagenaud for 3rd. Castroneves next in line 4th. And how about Ryan Hunter-Reay from 14th to 5th, former winner of the 500.
That doesn't shock me at all that he's found a way to the front. I'll tell you what, starting from the front position so far, you're a sitting duck. If there's 5 or 6 laps to go, that's not the best place to be.
That white car you saw around the outside, that's Oriol Servia, who was a lap down, took a wave around at the 2nd caution. Now there he is through some of the strategy up in 10th place and climbing. 3 wide, sorting out into turn 1.
And rush hour traffic at 210 or 15 miles an hour.
Got to get all you can get on these restarts.
These guys are 4 abreast,
for goodness sake. Rossi 27, blue and yellow car. Also done a nice job working his way forward. Remember, he started on the last row. He started 32nd. Alexander Rossi running in 12th place right now.
And that's the kind of run that you would expect from him. A very methodical driver, very quiet in the car. Team will tell you that he's very smart, very intelligent, a student of this type of racing when he came over here from Formula One.
And he's the only driver this year to have dominated at a race. He qualified on pole in Long Beach and just drove away from everybody. I know this is not Long Beach, but that sort of confidence goes a long way to helping you at a long race like this one. Kanaan still's leading.
Yeah, after the last restart, when Kanaan got the jump on Ed Carpenter, Ed passed him right back a lap later. This time, Kanaan is eased away by some 5-7 car lengths. And so the former winner, Tony Kanaan, took the checkered flag first back in 2013 in a race where he had to be very aggressive to get to the front at the end.
Do you remember what he said at the end, the last pit stop? I am going. It was like Babe Ruth pointing to a certain part of the baseball field saying, that's where I'm going to hit it.
Yeah.
That was amazing. He is the master at restarts.
Tony in his 21st season of IndyCar and his 17th 500-mile race, Rick.
Yeah, let's talk about something that's very different today than the year he won the race. He was saying that the year he won the race, he made no adjustments in the car. They liked the car all the way through. He wasn't using the tools inside the cockpit. They weren't making wing adjustments. Totally different today. He's been using the tools inside. They've been making adjustments outside. It's not an easy run to the front for Tony Kanaan in this race, but he doesn't care as long as it gets him to the end at the front of this pack.
Yeah.
As this race gets longer and longer, there's another advantage that goes to Tony Kanaan, and he has an incredible physical condition. He's a triathlete, and I think the heat that we're supposed to see today, it's only 123 degrees right now.
On the track.
On the track. Well, that's the only bit that he's really interested in.
Yes. 88 degrees outside right now. Track temperature 123 degrees. And this place is so big, the track temperature is actually different from one end of the racetrack to the other. Where Kanaan is headed right now, turn 3, it's 130 degrees of track temperature. Turn 4 is 127. Down at the other end of the speedway, turn 1 at 119, turn 2 at 117. Angle of the sun, shadows from grandstands, things like that.
And cloud cover.
But it affects how your car performs and that magic level of grip you're seeking to try and go as fast as you can around the Brickyard. About to hit the 200-mile mark in the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Tony Kanaan out in front. There's your top 5. Tony Kanaan, the race leader of the Indianapolis 500. You ride with Josef Newgarden, whose team just made a little strategy play. Download IndyCar Mobile and access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter, and more only on Verizon. Newgarden back in 20th place. Remember, he gave up 3rd at lap 70 for a pit stop when most of those running at the front of the pack around him did not stop. Now under green, in the next several laps, we're going to begin to see some of those front runners begin to filter onto the pit lane, barring another quick yellow. And Newgarden, a little check up there off of turn 2. Rick?
Well, if you're looking for the unfair advantage in the Penske team, it's all the little things. For example, check this out. It's a portable air conditioner that they have here in the pit. It actually sucks in the air here, blows cold air out here. So if the crews are feeling overheated, they can come, put their face in this, put their hand in this, maybe put their uniform up to it, cool themselves down, because it's so hot out here on pit lane. Remember, this may be one of the hottest 500s ever, that if you need to cool down, the Penske teams have that little extra advantage that other teams don't have.
And you just happen to coincidentally find it and stand there and be reporting on that car at the moment. Very good. Smooth move there, DeBrule. Smooth.
Yeah, both Alan and I looked up, and the Firestone information is giving us an ambient temperature of 92, track temperature of 124, and he talks about the crews. The crews feel the heat just like the drivers, as reported, and they are so important, Eddie, simply from the fact that they cannot make a mistake. Putting on a wheel or filling up with fuel can certainly cost them the race.
Tony Kanaan has a 1.5-second lead on Ed Carpenter. Will Power runs 3rd. Simon Pagenaud 4th. Helio Castroneves is 5th. So these front runners like Kanaan last pitted at lap 50. 30 and change lap fuel window, except they also had laps of caution because of those 2 crashes since they stopped. So they stretch that out a little more and begin to readjust the window. But look at the gap this front 6 has put from 7th place on back.
Have you noticed that none of them are stuck nose to gearbox? There's a big gap between every car.
There's Hunter Ray, and there, all the way back, is Marco Andretti, and then Spencer Pigot from 8th place on back. Really separated the field after this last restart.
And to your point, most of the passing has happened right after the restarts.
This is the time of the race where I was making sure I was giving information back to the team. We talked about the ambient temperature now being the hottest at 92, track temperature starting to increase. Give the information back to the team of how your car is working, how it's handling. working and changing the tools inside the car, getting your car working better is so important as Tony Kanaan works his way around Jay Howard. Put Jay Howard down a lap, riding on board with Jay. Jay does so much for young racers up and coming, runs the most successful Formula 4 team in the country right now, leading the championship, works with karting kids, and he is certainly looking in his mirrors right now as the Penske cars are starting to swallow him up.
Why did he slow down between 3 and 4? You own that corner. Don't lift up like that.
Well,
Let him pass you on the exit of 4, not between those 2 corners.
You're the ones that have driven race cars. Is that Kanaan pulling over to signal he's going to pit? That's what the drivers have been instructed to do.
That's what they've told us.
To signal the other drivers. Wow. That was dicey. To swerve
and
to
it's
the left
not
on
over.
the backstretch.
It's not over.
Here is Kanaan, indeed, from the lead.
TK, you want that half a turn? No. Okay, copy. Wide open. You can see it.
That was very emphatic. No, I don't want that half turn.
All right, Rick.
Which is interesting when you think about it. A lot of teams have been making greater turns. I just heard another team talking about one more turn they're going to make. The critical thing here for these guys is to get these pit stops just right. When we're under green flag conditions, they need to make sure that they time this as well as possible, get them back out. And there, look at that, a 7-second pit stop. That is blindingly fast.
I don't think that pit crew's pumped up about that 14 car being up front, having a chance to win.
You can say it, that
pit crew.
They have had their difficulties consistently performing in the last couple of years, but this couple of weeks here at Indianapolis on the oval, they have been consistently fast. Like most teams, struggled to solve the riddle of the new car and what the data meant compared to what the driver was feeling. But they are pumped up and know they have a chance to win this race.
And they're 100% behind Kanaan, and you can tell.
So now Ed Carpenter, the leader after the Kanaan stop. We expect we'll see Carpenter in very soon, if not here. And indeed, here he comes. That white line you see is not what they call an officiable line. It's okay to cross that line to the point that you reach the commit line to come onto pit road.
I mean, we can try a little more, but it is what it is.
So Carpenter here from the lead, putting Will Power out front.
And you heard Ed Carpenter when they asked him, what do you want? He said, maybe a little more, but it is what it is, meaning the understeer, especially the nose of the car, feeling light in turn 3. Okay in 1 and 2, but light in turn 3. Make a slight air pressure adjustment. Going to put 4 tires. Got to get it full of fuel. Fuel very important right now. Holding it, no wing change, he's away.
Marco Andretti also on the pit lane. Already has finished his stop, and he will follow Carpenter back onto the racetrack. So Will Power, the race leader. Here's Carpenter coming out with Kanaan. Kanaan's going to zoom by him off turn number 2 for once the field cycles through the stops.
I think from that report right there, from what Ed Carpenter said, it's probably the first time that his car has not been perfect, because he says it is what it is.
Rick?
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud relatively happy with the car, but they are going to make a quick wing adjustment, get the fuel in, and send him back out at 7.4 seconds. Remember Matthias Leitz, we haven't talked about him an awful lot today. He is a rookie in this race. He is the teammate also of Tony Kanaan when they qualified. In fact, he qualified right next to Tony Kanaan. He's been relatively happy with the car all day. Really, this has been a big learning experience for him. They've been trying to talk him through this. A nice clean stop. Once again, just 7.5 seconds.
Now off turn 4, Power, Castroneves, and Hunter Ray. The top 3 on the track in the cycle of stops will hit pit road for their service. Rick?
Yeah, Will Power has been sitting up at the front, not able to really do everything he wants, but you see no wing adjustment. They send him back out with a nice clean stop.
Elio Castroneves, they asked if he wanted a front wing. He said, let's just go with air. Let's save that wing. Elio said, I'm worried about running out of adjustments. Let's make it with air this time and save the wing for later.
Spencer Piggott to his pit lane. Doc?
Spencer Pigot probably has had the best car the last since carb day he's had all month long. Had a little bit of an issue with the GCU, meaning the gearbox control unit. Had to shut the car off and refire it during the yellow, but thus far he said the car really handling pretty well, other than just a slight understeer. Watch out for Pigot. Good fuel mileage, good handling car, and a young aggressive driver.
Yeah, Doc, watch out for him to come back to see you in just a minute. Pit road speeding penalty will bring the 21 in for a pass-through penalty. Here's Scott Dixon from the lead, along with Alexander Rossi. Doc?
And keep an eye on Dixon. They said his drink tube is not working. They may have to give him water. How about a driver sitting in this heat, not being able to drink? Now the tires are needed, and obviously air pressure for a little bit of understeer. We're going to watch and see if they can service the driver or not. Dixon said, I may be okay. They added a little bit of water inside, gave him a bottle. He's away. No other adjustments.
Well, that's one of the worst things that could happen to a driver today, not involving a crash, is for that water system to not be working inside the race car.
Absolutely.
And
where your training comes in.
Exactly, for those drivers, because they train so much. Scott Dixon with the best outfit in town, Pit Fit. He works harder than probably anybody else, the trainers over there will tell you. But the water bottle system, as we watch 64 with Servi and Pit Road, 4 tires, putting in some new fresh Firestones. Fuel in.
He had cycled up to the lead. Remember I said he was a lap down earlier, took a wave around on the lap 50 caution, and the next caution allowed him to catch back up to the field and get back in sync. Danica Patrick has come from the medical center and is with Jan.
Has just walked to my position here. Very emotional. First of all, Danica, are you okay?
Yeah.
What happened in turn number 2? It looked very similar to what happened to Ed Jones just a few laps prior.
Yeah, the first thing I said was I'm not sure really what happened. So it just seemed to come around, and it seemed pretty late off the corner. So I don't know. They said they looked back at the data, and it was kind of like a little lift in the middle. It was a little bit of understeer, and then back to it, and it just swung. So, yeah, you know, I mean, today was really disappointing for what we were hoping for and what you want for your last race. But I'm grateful for all of it. So, wish I could have finished stronger.
Are all the emotions you're dealing with specific here to Indy, knowing that how much of a difference that made in your career, or now that you're looking at an entire career that's wrapped up?
Yeah, it's an entire career. I mean, but, you know, what really launched it was this. So it's both of them. You know, I've had a lot of good fortune here, and did still have some this month. It just didn't come on race day, but we had some good moments.
You definitely did. Thank you, Danica.
Thanks.
Obviously not the way she wanted to finish. Tony Kanaan back on pit lane so soon, Rick.
Yeah, apparently he has a puncture in the right rear, and this is really going to put a major dent in his effort to win this Indianapolis 500. Not sure what caused it. There's the opportunity for debris. Sometimes you get close to something. Doesn't really matter. Bottom line is he's forced to come in, do another pit stop, and that is going to put a major dent in his ability to win this race, and he was out front.
Well, the thing they have to focus on is that we're just coming up to the halfway mark of the race, so they have time to try and catch one of those wave arounds or get cycled back onto the lead lap and try and see what they can make happen. In the cycle of pit stops, Graham Rahal is currently the leader. He started back in 30th place, last pitted 30 laps ago. We should see him on the pit lane fairly soon. So Danica Patrick's driving career is done. Said she wanted to be remembered as a great race driver. I think it's fair to say she showed us she was. Anxious moments for Zach Veach and the pit stop that you saw in our ABC side-by-side coverage. It appears that those flames that were trailing from where the fuel coupling disconnects have extinguished themselves. For whatever reason, that dry brake didn't break dry.
And actually you can see the flames coming up, so all that fuel is going down onto the under tray, and you'll see when he drives away, the flames will go out over the top. Sometimes they spray water on the car when it departs, and just underneath the under tray you'll start to see a small flame will still stay on board, and hopefully will go out as he's on track.
Wheel straight, put on the brakes. Take a little rear wing out for you. Go, 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 go. Fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher. Go, 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 go. Keep going. Just keep going.
Wow, scary, Doc.
Absolutely very scary. Normally when you see these teams make a pit stop and add fuel, you'll see someone spray water across the cowl at the fueling nozzle. That water against the hot cowl keeps that fuel that leaks out from igniting. There was no water being sprayed. Number one, as you saw, one of the rear changers there was in front of the fire extinguisher. They couldn't reach the fire either because the crew member was blocking the fire extinguisher. So 2 issues. Unfortunately, the fire extinguished himself, but they got very, very lucky.
Graham Rahal pits from the lead, Rick.
Here's Graham. He's actually been really happy with the car. He's running what we'll call the Newgarden strategy. Remember, Newgarden came in and pitted on off strategy? Well, Rahal's doing exactly the same thing. Their plan is to try to keep this car in a different strategy at the end of this race.
Robert Wickens also in. Carlos Munoz, Stephen Wilson all pitting on this lap. So that's going to cycle Zach Clayman DeMello back to the lead in front of Will Power, who is now around Ed Carpenter and at the head of the guys on that other pit stop schedule. So there is Clayman DeMello for Tony Kanaan. An important pass here if he can make it, because he is the first car 1 lap down. If he can get around Clayman DeMello and then catch a caution, he's back on the lead lap and back in the cycle.
Very unlucky with that flat tire. I think the other car is going to be coming into the pits.
Clayman DeMello pulling left to signal to Kanaan. His intent?
We'll put you a lap down.
Yes. There we go.
Smartly breathed the throttle going into 4 because he knew the speed from DeMello in front of him would slow down dramatically. Smart job by a veteran.
Rick?
Zachary Clayman DeMello, the rookie, brings the car in. Michael Cannon, his strategist, has been talking him through this whole race, giving him advice, telling him what to do, where to be on the track, how to handle everything. When you're a rookie, this is exactly what you need, and Michael Cannon is a good guy to have in his ear. Not a quick stop, 9.4 seconds, but the job here for a rookie is just to get out cleanly.
Now they've got him off cycle on the strategy, so depending how the cautions play out, you can, in a race where track position is important, you might steal a lot of positions, and at Indianapolis, a lot of money by doing that.
And it all depends on where the yellow falls, where the inevitable yellow falls.
Yes. So there's your new leader, Will Power. 37-year-old from Australia, originally now living outside of Charlotte in his 11th 500. He drives for Roger Penske. We said before the race, when you drive for Roger Penske, you are expected to win the 500.
The only thing that's missing for him is an Indy 500 win, because he has won everything else. And he's definitely on a road course, one of the fastest qualifiers. Always a good fun to watch.
Will struggled en route to becoming a champion of this series because his oval track racing wasn't what it needed to be. Solve that riddle. Is a champion, is a contender to win this Indy 500, Rick.
Well, yeah, and think about this. So Will Power talks about the fact that in 2015, they had a great set of cars. This year, he said he feels the cars are as good as they were in 2015. He lost that race. He finished second to Juan Pablo Montoya. Well, this year, his strategist, John Boslog, is the same strategist who was the strategist for Juan Pablo Montoya in 2015. So Will goes into this race thinking he's got a little extra advantage, knowing what happened in 2015.
I have talked with Will on several occasions over the last week and a half. Will has been as calm could be, as quietly confident as confident can be. We're in the envelope. Yeah, it's good. Everything's great. No, I think we're on top of it. He's a man who knows what he's looking at in this race and hopes at the end of the day he's got a really up-close look at a brick that he'd like to plant a big old kiss on. Around. Will Power is the race leader. There are several stories of this day to talk about. One, the final race of Danica Patrick's career. Of course, coming here after running at Daytona earlier this year in the Daytona 500, saying the Danica Double would be her last race. That not the way she wanted the final drive of her racing career to end, but a crash into the outside wall in turn number 2 at lap 68 would be the final circuit. Her mom Bev looking on. Danica did climb from the car and was okay. We did hear from her earlier. Patrick is done and will finish in 30th place in this, her last Indy 500. You saw during our side-by-side coverage Kyle Kaiser's first Indy 500 come to an end for the Juncos Racing team. Mechanical issue has knocked the youngster from Santa Clara, California from the field. So that gives us now 5 cars out of the race. Of the 33 starters, 4 of the 5 by crashes. Ed Jones, Takuma Sato, James Davison also out of the race in accidents. So lead lap, 22 of the 33 starters. Most laps led today belongs to Ed Carpenter. He was the dominant driver of the opening 150 miles of the race, and then he got passed by Tony Kanaan after a couple of restarts. The first one he got the lead right back. The second one he did not. Now Carpenter 4.7 seconds behind Will Power with still a long ways to go in this race.
And we talked earlier in the show, drivers are going to be worried about the performance of the car over 500 miles, chasing track conditions, chasing the heat that we have here. Eddie, is no different than when you and I drove. Communicate back to the pit lane, tell them what you're feeling inside the car, make the car fast and comfortable for you. As Rick Mears always did here, the 4-time winner, he wanted the fastest car that he had of the day at the very end of the race.
But I think this is a different race than what we've seen in the past, in as much as these cars are very sensitive to changes. When they're behind somebody, they have a lot of push. But if you start tuning for that too much, you can get caught out like Ed Jones and Danica Patrick did, where they just lost control of the car. And they were both talking about push, but what actually happened is they looked like they overcorrected and it went the other way. So you can tune for being in front, or you can tune for being in second place. And the next thing that we've learned is that whoever's in the lead of the restart, you're a sitting duck that first corner.
Some traffic here for the race leader. Next weekend, a doubleheader in Detroit. The raceway at Belle Isle Park, the Verizon IndyCar Series Detroit Grand Prix presented by Steel, Saturday and Sunday. Next weekend, 3:30, both days on ABC. Will Power for Team Penske out in front. 300 miles in the books. Back after a word from your ABC station. The Indianapolis 500-mile race just across its 300-mile mark here in Indianapolis on a 93-degree day. It is a steamy one. There is your leader, Will Power, who got caught up in a little bit of traffic, saw a 4-second lead shrink to 1, now has built it back up to 3 seconds after clearing some of those lap cars. So there's Power.
49 would help. 49 would get us another lap. Is it going to be worth what we lose in speed? Yeah, that's what everybody else is doing.
So that's Ed Carpenter's team radioing him about a fuel number that they would like him to hit before he has to pit the next time. So Carpenter just ahead of Simon Pagenaud in the 22, who runs third, former series champion. Another one that's been very quietly confident throughout the week of oval track practice here. Then it's Ryan Hunter-Reay and Helio Castroneves, 4th and 5th. Hunter-Reay right there, moved up nicely. Don't count him out. He sure knows what he's doing to try and win this race. And Marco Andretti just made a move to pit lane.
Yes, and he's been happy with the car, but this is a little out of sequence. If you stop now, you'll have 2 more stops till the end of the race. Ryan Hunter-Reay, for example, his teammate, they've just told him, we only expect to make 2 more stops to the end, so they're giving him a fuel number. But look at this. He's chasing down Pagenaud.
Helio Castroneves there, back in 5th place. Cycled as low as 23rd in some of the green flag pit stop cycles that we've had during the course of the race, but very solidly there all day, though not really contending for the lead at any point in the race.
He's gaining knowledge. He's figuring out where to put his car, and if he's in the top 3, he's somebody you're going to have to race against.
And what I liked earlier is that he said he didn't want to use the front wing any further. He wanted to make the car better by going on tire pressure. That was a smart move because it gives him the wing later on in the race.
Riding with Scott Dixon, running 6th. Dixon started in 9th position. Here's Ed Carpenter in. 73 laps to go. Doc?
And very interesting, they're really wanting him to hit a fuel number, and you got to be wondering if they're thinking about maybe getting some yellows and somehow pushing the envelope and making it on one more stop. They talked about that yesterday in the garage. Here he is for a stop. They didn't talk about making any wing change. They mentioned air pressure, basically just trying to stay out of trouble and get good fuel mileage. 7.4 seconds for the pole sitter.
Mateus Laced also on and off the pit road with Ed Carpenter on this lap. Simon Pagenaud is going to peel off and hit the pit lane along with Helio Castroneves. So the Penske team cars in here. We're on a 55-lap green flag run at this point since the last restart. And here they're in with 72 to go, Rick.
Yeah, Simon Pagenaud was actually complaining of a vibration just a short time ago. And they said, look, we're going to pit in just 2 or 3 laps. Can't do anything about it right now. That might explain why he wasn't doing as well as he could on the track. Nice quick stop, Doc.
Helio Castroneves, Roger keeps talking about what a great fuel number he's getting. A little slow leaving the pit there, probably cost him an extra second or so, but Roger said, I'm very impressed, Helio. Great job with the fuel.
And from the lead, Will Power heads for the pit lane. Ryan Hunter-Reay will take over the number 1 spot. Power working his way down toward his crew, Rick.
Yeah, Will Power, actually, they made some adjustments on the car in the first couple stops, but they did not make any adjustments on the last stop. They also were talking about fuel. Will Power came on the radio and asked the team, did he need to do anything with regards to fuel? They're like, nope, you're good. Keep doing it the way you're doing. 7.1 second stop.
Great pit stop for 7.1 seconds. When drivers are coming in the pit lane, you see them reach up to their helmet and tear something off. That's a clear, thin visor strip that gets dirty as they're running. They take it off during the pit stop so they have a clear track ahead of them to be able to see out the visor.
Ryan Hunter-Reay following Max Chilton down the pit lane. Jan?
With an incredible charge through the field. Look for Ryan Hunter-Reay. They're going to add a half turn of front wing, and they have been coaching him, giving him a fuel number. Team says he doesn't necessarily have the fastest car on his own, but he's obviously making hay when he is in traffic. That was a 7.1 second, Doc.
Here's Scott Dixon coming in for his stop, and Dixon, again, we talked about him trying to get watered in the car. We want to watch here from Blair Julian, the crew chief, the outside front tire changer. Here's Dixon coming in. They want to be flawless here. Would love to be in 7.2 seconds or less. Watch the clock, left lower part of the screen. 4 tires on Dixon away. Pretty good pit stop for Dixon.
Tony Kanaan, Alexander Rossi also on and off the pit lane under this lap. Remember, Kanaan leading the race earlier, made a pit stop, then had to come back in after he suffered a puncture that set him back at the tail end of the lead lap. So Sebastian Bourdais is your leader in that 18 car. He's running just behind Connor Daly, who is now on the tail end of the lead lap with this cycle of pit stops. Josef Newgarden runs second, Graham Rahal third, Robert Wickens fourth, Carlos Munoz fifth, all of them on an off-pit strategy from what some of the leaders like Power and Pagenaud and Carpenter have been doing.
And these different strategies have put a Honda engine in the lead with Bourdais, so we'll see how strong he is towards the end of this run. All the drivers are working out a plan in their head as to what they need, just like you've been saying, Scott, handling-wise.
That was Bourdais' radio saying pit this lap, so we'll see him in. Oriol Servia just on and off the pit lane. So getting down to the point where can they make it on one more stop if we don't see another caution flag.
Pit now.
Driver's going to slow from 200 miles an hour down to 60 while going through the opening between the pit wall and the inside wall.
Check your brake, check your pit speed. Pit lane, top of the chute.
And then find your pit box among the maze of crews and cars.
A year ago he was standing on crutches. Today he's been standing on the gas. They're going to do a half a turn of front wing. Car owner Dale Coyne is over there with the water to spray on the fueling nozzle to make sure they don't have a fuel issue. There's a half turn away. There goes the water, and there goes Bourdais. Almost 9 seconds, so about a second and a half faster than they wanted to be.
So Josef Newgarden is the leader. They're now the top 5. Those first 4 on a different pit strategy. We'll see how it plays out in the closing laps of the race. Trouble. Sebastian Bourdais has crashed and the yellow flag is out in the Indy 500. Turn 4. And sad to see for someone who worked so hard to come back here and to have such a good car to compete in this Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Just hang out there, wait for safety to get you. They're coming.
So this the 4th caution of the race.
Wow, these cars are so difficult to control when they're on the limit. When you're behind somebody, you get caught up in dirty air and you have a little bit too much steering in. He just had a tank slapper, whereas the last years you'd have had 800 to 1,000 pounds more downforce to help you. Look at that, he just barely got sideways and then lost control. This is all happening at 220 miles an hour.
The cars being so safe today. You see that white barrier that we have in front of the concrete wall, the safer barrier that we see on the upside there. Watch the steering wheel right now.
Almost
he corrects
caught it.
I almost got it. It comes back the other way. I've lived that. Then it starts to go into what you call, Eddie, as you mentioned, a tank slapper. Now you're along for the ride.
And you want it to go into
backwards. That safer barrier that's put there. Designed by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, steel and foam energy reduction really helps soften the blow to cars hitting the wall.
So thinking forward as to what they're going to use, they've got to get the right sort of amount of downforce on the front.
61 laps to go. Someone said they needed a caution to make it to the finish on fuel. We'll talk about that next. Cleanup continues here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway under the 4th caution of the 500-mile race after Sebastian Bourdais crashed in turns 3 and 4. The leader is Will Power. Tony Kanaan is on the tail end of the lead lap now and will get to take a wave around the pace car and rejoin the end of the pack and the lead lap after having that flat tire while contending for the lead earlier. Jan, this caution and the timing of it really kind of sets up a strategy scramble to the finish for some folks.
Yes, it does. And you mentioned that there was a radio communication of someone who needed a yellow. Well, that was Marco Andretti. So this gives him an opportunity to get back on cycle. It also helps his teammate, Ryan Hunter-Reay, who was saving a bit of fuel. Now he'll be able to go use more fuel and get speed on track. Alan?
All right, so it'll be interesting to see. Some of the people stopped with about 70 laps to go. 59 to go now. Who's going to win the Indianapolis 500? Still very much in doubt. 57 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500. Our telecast presented by Firestone. ABC Live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 54th consecutive year. What I called a tactical race earlier, certainly playing out that way now with this amount of time left. Rick?
That's exactly right. You know, it was a dicey situation for Will Power on fuel. They were hoping they were going to make it. Now with all this yellow, I just checked with the strategist, John Boslog, and I said, one more stop? Can you make it that fast? And he nodded his head, thinking that's the plan. Interestingly enough, point out the Power pitted later than the people behind him, a lap or two later. By the way, they just gave him one bit of advice. Drink out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Well,
let's check in with Doc.
This yellow, a huge break for Ed Carpenter. I just talked to Tim Broyles. They would have been very, very close and probably would have been a lap or so shy of making it. With this yellow now, they can stretch it to just beyond lap 165, and if they're careful in the draft, they can make it on one more stop on fuel. They know they got the horsepower and they got a strong car. The question is, would they have fuel? This yellow may have given them enough fuel to have a shot to win this race.
Again, with the variable settings, engine mappings, fuel consumption rates, and so on, how fast can you go and still have the fuel to make it on that one more stop if we don't see any more yellows?
Well, the other side about that too, Alan, is not just the fuel to make it, but you have to go racing at the end of it. You need 100% fuel, 100% horsepower. If you're throttling back and the guy behind you has fuel to burn, you're a sitting duck.
Here we go, restart with 55 laps to go in the race.
We'll see how Power does at this restart, because every time Carpenter was in front, he lost the position.
Hunter-Reay with a move on Pagenaud. Pagenaud fends it off. Castroneves tries to attack. Look at Rossi on the outside. Alexander Rossi with the move of the race.
You just don't do that with these new cars, but he did.
And we're
Four wide.
You can tell we're getting towards the end of the race.
But listen to Dixon work the throttle. That's how difficult these new cars are to drive. But he makes it through.
Caution, trouble. Elio Castroneves into the wall.
Oh dear.
Castroneves racing in 5th position and now crashed out of the race. And Roger Penske left to look and say, what happened?
Eddie, as you mentioned, as you get closer to the end of the race, drivers are thinking about track position. Listen to the roar of the crowd for the Spider-Man.
Let's hope we see him again at the Speedway.
All right, look for the yellow car. Wow.
Same thing. That's the same thing we've been seeing all day.
Ryan Hunter-Reay directly behind him, and Alexander Rossi made some brilliant moves not to get collected in that accident. Back end's light, it comes around, you cannot control that. Let's ride along now and listen.
Just lost grip.
Oh, so difficult as a driver because you know you're backwards and you're about ready to hit something. You just sit and wait.
This will be a good view from Hunter-Reay.
And this, folks, this is just reaction. This is no thinking. The smoke is there. You dive through it. You hope you've gone to the right place. Spotters up top are yelling to their drivers, go high, go low. And he is clear. He made it through safely.
This new car is very unforgiving.
Wow. Yep, he can hear the fans, but that's not how he wanted this Indy 500 to end for sure. Now Rick Mears in the white shirt, one of the spotters for Castroneves and a 4-time champion, as well as AJ Foyt, a 4-time champion, Al Unser, the other 4-time champ. And for Castroneves, his 9th attempt at that 4th win will come up dry today. Watch real time from Hunter-Reay.
Come on.
That's as much time as he had to make that decision. Jan?
Elio stopped for a moment on his walk down pit road. Very frustrated when he got out of the car. What happened?
Yeah, got a good move in Ryan and got the momentum. I thought probably when I went wide in 3, probably was a little bit of a, dust in the tires. And then as soon as I came turn 3, I was eager to go and trying to pass Simon, but then the rear just gave up. So I was not expecting, never had any sign, but it's frustrating. Car was good. Definitely was very tough out there, but please, Roger, we got to go back.
I know you want to come back. It looked like everyone turned up the juice there on that last restart. Now it's getting serious.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's 60 laps to go, 50 laps to go. Now I start pushing, and we're saving fuel, and yeah, people start like going for it, and that's why I saw the opportunity. That's the time to go, but misjudge a little bit the tires.
All right, everyone here also, Elio, wants you to be back as well.
Safety crew trying to get Elio to go take the trip to the medical center. Castroneves wants to go down and talk to his team first, and we appreciate him stopping to talk to us. So 5th yellow flag of the race is out. for the 4-time champion Helio Castroneves. Cleanup underway. We're back after a word from your ABC station. Speaking of coverage, Helio Castroneves, a popular guy here, getting a lot of coverage on his walk back to the medical center after crashing out of the race. Crashing has been a theme of the day in this 500-mile race. There have been 5 different accidents in the race so far, one involving Roger Penske's driver that he was calling the strategy for. And really, it's been the story, this new IndyCar proving as difficult for the drivers on a hot day like this as some of them speculated it might be.
And we saw Takuma Sato run up back of James Davison. You can see he goes up for a ride. James Davison just going too slow for the pace. Takuma Sato, no place left to go. Car slid up and caught the back end, went up and over the tires.
Ed Jones involved in trouble off turn 2.
He just lost the back of it turning into 2, and once that happens, there's nowhere you can end up except the wall. But they're very all these spins are uncharacteristic of these cars.
And 10 laps after the Jones crash, Danica Patrick's racing career came to an end with that hit.
Much the same as Ed Jones, and in that scenario, the back end went around. As we mentioned, very similar to the previous accident, but there she climbed out of the car, one of the most popular drivers that we've had in any sport, NASCAR or IndyCar.
Little trouble on pit road for Zach Veach. Yikes. The crew all able to manage that situation effectively, but difficulty with the dry brake, spraying some fuel on the hot car, but no one hurt. Sebastian Bourdais in a crash at lap 138.
He almost caught it, then it got away from him, and he spun many times before he hit the wall, which is always good because it takes off speed.
Bourdais started this race in 5th position, but his day not coming to an end the way that he wants to back in 28th. And Helio Castroneves, who started in 8th position, running in the top 5, and had that crash off of turn number 4.
We heard him say it was now time to get more aggressive, getting closer to the end of the race. Watch this. As a driver, you're waiting for the impact. There it is. And Roger Penske did say to Helio, if you win the race, I'll bring you back next year. You heard Helio say, Roger, during the interview, please bring me back. So let's see if he returns back in 2019.
Doc?
Standing up there, Roger, Helio was doing all he could. He wanted you to be able to fulfill that promise if he wanted to come back next year, Roger. And he kept saying when he climbed out of the car, Roger, I want to come back.
Well, we certainly take a good look at that for sure. You know, he's done a great job. Fortunate on that restart, he got a good run and guess just got a little bit high there. And, you know, you don't see a guy like that lose it very often. But what a great guy. What's he done for our team for so many years. And, you know, he's the fence climber, and he's one of my best guys.
Still got 3 good ones in there, AB.
And the green flag is back out, Doc. Restart. And Will Power will try to fend off that hungry pack of people behind him. Look at Alexander Rossi trying to fight his way through in that blue and yellow.
And he's on the high side again.
Man, I can't believe he did it.
He got through 2 drivers in 2 corners. Rossi, who started second to last in this race, fighting his way to the front.
Well, he's starting to put all of his cards on the table.
Oh, trouble into the wall. Sage Karam. And another caution flag.
But what a brilliant piece of driving. Caught the car, brought it back, put it up against the wall.
And this is going to be a longer cleanup. What a piece of driving by Rossi on the top side around 1 and 2. And it's not the first time he's done it, it's the second.
I really don't know what happened, man.
Well, let's see if we can find out what happened. As the young driver from Nazareth, Pennsylvania found the wall.
Same thing that happened to everybody else.
Wow.
Back end started to come around. got loose. He caught it halfway through the turn.
But when he hit the wall, it just ripped that right rear tire off the car. And after that,
once you hit the wall, everything starts coming off. That started before he came into view.
Riding along with Scott Dixon, looking forward. I'll tell you, there is some wild stuff going on in these restarts. Anytime it gets closer to the end of the event, Eddie, as you mentioned, drivers are all thinking about track position. You want to get further up in the field as far as you can because these cars are difficult to pass with, and everybody knows it's getting time to put the show on.
The worst part of that accident was that rear tire bouncing around.
Yeah, without question. But Sage Karam's day is done in this 500, and the car count back in the garage continues to rise after a series of incidents scattered throughout the race. Will Power is the race leader under yellow with 45 laps to go. Marco Andretti's view of this 6th yellow flag. Very intense late stages of the Indianapolis 500, a race a year ago where big drafts and slingshot passing were the norm. Today, the cars with less downforce, requiring a delicate balance, requiring the drivers to have incredible touch. Who'd have thought Alexander Rossi, after a problem in qualifying, would have started in the middle of the last row and now be in 3rd place with 43 laps to go?
Very aggressive, just driving the car wherever he wants, high or low. That means the driver has a lot of confidence with the car underneath him. Look at this, down to the grass below Sebastian. Unbelievable.
This is the move of the race right here. Look at all these cars he passes on the outside. The outside is slippery, it's full of dust, and he keeps on going and barely makes it. But he does.
Our Firestone moment of the race. Then the next restart, where he tries to go inside of his Andretti Autosport teammate Hunter Ray, who closes the door, so he goes outside, goes by Hunter Ray in 1, and goes by Pagenaud in 2.
And look how close those tires are.
All this at 215 and 20 miles an hour.
And this is the area where everybody has been spinning.
Oh, look at that. How fun is that?
That's an incredible mixture of talent and just raw courage.
Well, they have this 27 car spot on for their driver, who's taken everything he can out of it, Jan.
Yes, they do, and that's thrilling for us. I don't know if it's thrilling for Rob Edwards on the radio. That's some crazy time driving around the outside. Obviously, the car's working well.
Yeah, car's working well. I mean, obviously, when we were back in a lot of traffic earlier in the race, it was hard to know exactly what we had. But you know, now we've got a few less cars around us. Yeah, car's working well. Alex is in the groove, so we'll see what we can do here the last 40 laps.
You were just on the radio telling him where they're sweeping because he makes these outside moves. That obviously plays in your hand with a clean track.
Yeah, I mean, the more information he's got to work with, right, he knows what options he's got, high or low, and so we're just trying to make sure he knows everything he needs to know.
Can you win it?
I think so. We'll see.
All right, that'll be awesome. Alan?
All right, Jan. Well, I said on the pace laps when we were talking about Rossi that if he was going to win, he was going to have to make history today. He started in 32nd place. No one's won the 500. Deeper in the field than 28th, and that was an awfully long time ago, including the very first 500-mile race.
And you can hear Alexander Rossi right now saving fuel, accelerating, then clutching, just doing that. Scott Dixon's very good at that too. But also what I noticed, guys, is I saw this with Will Power. We just saw it with Alexander Rossi, putting their hand up outside the cockpit just to start to get the wind going over your body to try and cool yourself down, trying to get some airflow through the car. At this 92-degree ambient temperature that we have, Eddie, you know this. We've driven when it's been 82, 85 in our discussions this morning before we got here. You are just looking for airflow, because in the yellow, this is when you start to think about how hot you are. When it goes green, you forget all about it.
When you're in the top 3 around here, they could have a volcano going off in the middle of the infield, and I don't think you would feel anything. Rossi is on a high right now. Rob said he's in a groove. He is the groove. He's making his own groove. He decides where he puts his car, and he gets away with it. Anybody else that tries that is spinning and crashing. The great Castro Neves, who knows his way around this, tried a move, maybe not as aggressive as that, and he didn't get away with it. And yet Rossi did, and he knows it, and everybody else in front of him knows it.
1 lap to go. Scott Dixon pitting. A fuel strategy play here by Mike Hull and the Ganassi team. 40 laps to go in the race.
Well, they say no one is better at saving fuel, in fact, making fuel, than Scott Dixon. Now, you think about this, 39 laps to go. They come in, he knows everyone else has to make one more pit stop around 170 or 172, topping it off, getting it full of fuel, watching the number. Mike Hall told me this morning, someone that might just sneak away with one here, they know how to make fuel, and he gave me a wink. Well, his guy is the best in the business.
I think they're banking on another yellow.
You see that tube coming out of Scott Dixon's helmet? That's the water tube that drivers have. Push a button on your steering wheel and the water comes in. You get a nice drink, but the problem is right now at this point in the race, Eddie, that water is pretty darn hot. We did have reports that maybe his water bottle system was not working, but no doubt, water or no water, the hottest day we've had in the IndyCar here.
Let's watch this restart. Power got the jump on Carpenter, and he's going to lose another position to Rossi.
Alexander Rossi on the move again on the outside, going for second place on Ed Carpenter. Carpenter not wanting to give in.
Rossi is still in Carpenter's gearbox, leaving 2.
Whoa, big slide there for Matthias Laced. Wiggins had to check up. Look at Kanaan. Tony Kanaan trying to blast his way back toward the front. In the 14 car.
Oh, God.
Are you kidding me?
This is insane.
That put Kanaan up to 9th place, but still a long way back in the line. That's Graham Rahal who just popped out and picked up a spot. Josef Newgarden in that silver car trying to pick up a spot.
And Kanaan goes again.
So now you're someone like Rossi or you're someone like Kanaan. You're trying to get all you can. Or are you backing off on the fuel so you spend, for Rossi for example, so you spend less time sitting still on the pit stop you know is coming and see if you can gain some track that way.
Go for broke.
Interesting to see some cars can run that higher line, that second groove that's starting to come in. So the white car, Oriol Servia, doing that a little bit a moment ago. I was really surprised once this track starts to come in with that higher groove. Maybe they will have an option up there.
We have yet to see the car that's been running in second place pass the car that is leading. When Carpenter was ahead, Power did not pass him. When Carpenter is behind, he couldn't pass Power.
Except on restarts.
On restarts, but now we're past the restart. Whenever they get going and they're in a rhythm after 2 or 3 laps, the leader goes away from the second place. Although Rossi sure does look strong in the middle of the corners.
Interesting, this week I was doing a bit of a poll asking drivers, do you think, unlike other years, a driver will start to be able to pull away and get away from the guy that's in second? Half the field said no way, and some of the other guys said, I think that's possible. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of a gap a guy like Will Power can stretch out here.
You look back through that running order at the top of the screen. With all of the cautions and accidents that we've had, the different pit stop schedules that we had going during the long green flag run that have now kind of come back together because of the series of yellows, some people have really benefited and made the most out of it. First of all, by missing the wrecks, but like Graham Rahal, for example, another one, started 30th. He's running in 6th place right now from way back in the field.
And that's by being very smart on the racetrack, working with the team that we talked about to make the car better, has struggled with an ill-handling car all week. But now that United Rentals machine with Graham aboard is doing a tremendous job and putting himself in contention.
Nothing Rahal does in the race surprises me. He is like a tiger when he has to catch up.
Another one that's had a similar race, started in the back, but they've worked the circumstances. J.R. Hildebrand in the 66. Hildebrand started the race back in 27th place. He's now running in 10th. in that blue and orange and white car right there. So Hildebrand for the Dreyer Reinbold team, Indianapolis-based, running only the 500. They've worked it well, and there he is. He always seems to find himself in the top 10. Last year he was in the top 5 and then got a late penalty for a problem and had to do a pass-through penalty that dropped him back to 15th.
Very smart race driver. You can almost say like he's an engineer in a way, because the way his mind works. He did tell me earlier in the week that it has been more difficult coming here, as a part-time driver, but also with a part-time team. So give them full credit to be where they are now on the grid.
When will the last pit stops happen? Who will make the first move? And don't forget Scott Dixon back there running 2 seconds slower than the leaders every lap, saving fuel.
Will Power pits out of the lead here at the 102nd running of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Indy 500. A 6.6 second stop. He is back out, trying to get back into the lead of this race.
Marco Andretti, Josef Newgarden pitted the lap before. J.R. Hildebrand the lap before that. Here's Ryan Hunter-Reay ducking out of 4th position. Tony Kanaan following in. Jan?
Ryan Hunter-Reay is taking this opportunity. We watch another 6.6 second stop. He obviously has been very loose in traffic. They've had an opportunity to make an adjustment. Rick?
Tony Kanaan is working his way back up to the front of the pack. He's likely going to need one more yellow flag to pull it off. You see they made just a wing adjustment there. He's been able to move his way up on those restarts. He's a master at it. He'll probably need one more to pull this off.
Yeah, get the yellow flag not for fuel, just for track position, and another chance at a restart to try and take advantage. Here's Ed Carpenter in from the race lead. Graham Rahal follows him down the pit lane. Doc?
Ed Carpenter saved fuel so he can pit a couple laps later because he wants to burn fuel to be able in this last stint to run down Will Power and company. They talked about adding some front wing. 4 tires, gotta get it completely full of fuel. There's the front wing. Oh, down and away, Carpenter.
And Graham Rahal follows Carpenter back onto the racetrack. So now Rossi is the race leader with Pagenaud, Munoz, Servia, Wickens, and some others on a different pit stop schedule. Here comes Rossi, Jan.
And they're going to change these tires to the larger stagger. That means the car will turn more positively. The inside rear will be a little bit smaller. They're picking just the right set for the finisher. Oh, yeah! 6.5 seconds. Rob Edwards looks on. Alexander Rossi back to the races.
So how all these cars blend back together after the pit stops all cycle out will be fascinating to see. Here's Pagenaud, the race leader. Coming in. A pit road speeding penalty here would be a killer. Don't do it. Carlos Munoz takes over the lead. Pagenaud all the way down to the other end of pit lane to Team Penske.
Well, Simon Pagenaud, back in 2015, had a killer car, a car he thought could win the race. He was actually playing with the field, but he made a mistake. He clipped another car. His goal today, not to make a single mistake. A little bit longer stop, though, a full second over his teammate.
At this point in the race, that time makes a very big difference.
And you've heard the old phrase, a football field a second. That puts you a football field's length behind that teammate you lost the second to. Here is Carlos Munoz from the lead. Jan?
And Carlos, of course, also in the Andretti stable. He's been very happy with this car. He runs that unique line where he goes very low. Looks like the right rear is the last that will get done, and that slows them just a little bit. In fact, 8.6 seconds. There's that 2 football fields you talked about.
Yep. You cover a lot of ground in a short period of time at 200 miles an hour. There is Oriol Servia, now the race leader. Remember I talked about Servia getting a lap down, staying out under a caution, getting a wave around by being between the leader and the pace car, working his way all the way back up through the top 10. He's been shuffled up and down the standings since then based on the cycle of pit stops and the strategy cycles. But now the veteran from Spain, now living in Los Angeles, is the race leader at Indianapolis with 23 to go. Spencer Piggott just in front of him. Remember, had a pass-through penalty earlier for speeding on pit road. That's got Piggott back in 21st place. Of the cars, I'm sorry, Scott, of the cars that pitted, you see Wickens there in the 6. He's a second place car right now. Of the cars that pitted, Will Power is 7th now. Guess who's 6th? Scott Dixon. And I am telling you, we're not seeing Dixon on pit road for the rest of this race unless something goes wrong.
Now, the only disadvantage for Dixon is that he's going to have more laps on his tires if it comes to a shootout at the end. But all these late pit stops that we've seen, we should not have to worry about people running fuel. They'll be able to run full fuel, full horsepower. And don't forget, there's usually a knob on the steering wheel that advances the spark on the engine, gives you a little bit more horsepower. You can't run it all day long, but Eddie, you and I talked about this the other day. There's no doubt that it'll be there for the last 20 laps or so.
But it will change your fuel as you use more. Maybe Dixon is trying to do what Alexander Rossi did for his first Indianapolis 500 win.
That was Dixon passing Clayman DeMello for 5th place. There's the leader, Robert Wickens.
This lap, please confirm.
Who just passed Oriol Servia for the race lead. While we went back and had a look at the position of Scott Dixon on the racetrack, you're hearing the instruction from Wickens' crew, so he'll be giving up the lead.
And he gets to lead his first Indianapolis that he's run in, which is something that's always great, and he becomes part of what they call the Leader Circle Club, even though it was under a different fuel strategy, but still nice to have your name on that board.
Wickens, Servia,
all clear to pit.
Stephen Wilson, Jack Harvey. Those are your top 4. Here comes Wickens from the race lead, giving the top spot back to Servia. With 20 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500. In the final miles of the Indianapolis 500, our telecast presented by Firestone. In our ABC side-by-side coverage, you just saw Will Power pass Scott Dixon. So Power, who pitted with 29 laps to go, the highest up of the cars we know can run hard all the way to the finish. But Oriol Servia is the leader. And Steph Wilson is 2nd, and Jack Harvey is 3rd. They all pitted at lap 157, 157, and 158. Will we see another late lead change in this race like we've seen in the last 8 years of the event? How about Servia? Where are they at on their fuel strategy, Jan?
Well, the situation, I just spoke to the strategist, Derek Davidson, and he said, we need a yellow. So they're telling Oriol, okay, push, but unless they get a yellow, by his body English, they will not make it to the end. But if they get that caution, obviously leading the Indy 500, he's right where they want to be.
Then it's a matter of fresh tires and how many other people pit, all those kind of things that might come into play. So there is Servia. Running 4.2 seconds behind Servia is Stephen Wilson, the 28-year-old, originally from Sheffield, England, now from Denver. In his second 500 start for Andretti Autosport, you know the story well, the younger brother of Justin Wilson, who lost his life in a racing crash in an event at Pocono, donated organs that helped 5 others after that crash. Stephen racing not only to compete, but that driven to save lives, promoting organ donation that was so important to him in the aftermath of what happened to his brother. Stephen's supposed to have run his second 500 race a year ago, but was asked to give up the seat when Formula One star Fernando Alonso became available. He did. He was promised he'd have a ride this year. Michael Andretti made good on that promise, and here's Wilson running 2nd with 13 laps to go, Doc.
And he said, I've never felt closer to my late brother than today at this racetrack. I know he would have won this race someday. He said, he is looking after me. He is riding with me. He said, I got nothing after today. He said, I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and there is no tomorrow. So I've got to roll the dice. Whatever I can do to have a shot at winning this race, it'll happen for me and for him.
Crash Doc, Tony Kanaan is in trouble and into the wall, and the yellow flag is out with 12 laps to go.
I'm okay. Sorry, guys. I'm out.
Well, we have a brand new race.
7th caution of the 500. And now Oriol Servia will have a decision on his hand, as well as the others racing on the lead lap. The speed of fresh tires versus the track position and the few laps remaining in this race by the time we go back to green. What happened to Kanaan? That tricky turn 2 caught another one.
Looks like the car just started to wiggle just a little bit. Coming out of the turn, back end started to move a little bit. Looked like he had a correction, almost caught it, and then it got away from him.
Almost doesn't do it around here. That's the same thing.
But you're hopeful.
You can be hopeful as much as you want. Once it gets sideways, you're gone.
Oh, you heard him be aggressive on the accelerator. He was looking for a draft going down the stretch, down into turn 3, hoping to make up some positions, and it didn't work out.
What a day Tony Kanaan has had. Remember, he was leading the race, contending for the win, one of the stronger cars in the field. Just after a set of pit stops, came up with a puncture in a tire, had to pit again, fell back, got a lap down, got the lap back, was charging back up to try and be in contention for the win. And now his race car is wrecked, and he's in the safety vehicle, headed for a checkup.
But he had a great performance, didn't he?
Boy, he was solid. So now 11 laps to go in this race. On the lead lap, there are 19 cars. That's a lot of traffic for Oriol Serbia to think about giving up track position to try and come back through on fresh tires.
You're the leader. You can go as slow as you want.
There you go. There's a decision.
Well, you really can't. You got to keep up with the pace car, but Jan, he's in the lead right now.
Derek Davidson is on the radio right now to Oriol. All right, you said you wanted to yell. You got it. Can you make it to the end?
We believe we can. We're going to go for it.
So the last word was save, save, save. Right now you save under caution. Will he have enough to hit the go pedal if he gets the pressure from behind?
Yeah, we believe so. Yeah, we think we're good.
Wow. Exactly what this team wanted for Oriol Serbia. And who knows how this will play out.
If you think a couple of those other restarts were wild, you haven't seen anything yet.
I think there's a very good chance we might have another yellow.
Oh, this is going to be nuts.
These cars are so difficult to drive right on the limit. They keep catching everybody out. To catch a driver like Kanaan out in turn 2, it takes a special set of circumstances.
Well, when you look at Serbia, Wilson, and Harvey, your first 3, then behind you when you look in the mirrors, and you see Will Power, Scott Dixon, Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Simon Pagenaud, not only champions there, but Indy 500 winners. You think that they're not going to be coming out? I look for 4 or 5 wide going down in turn 1 restart.
And now Dixon does not have to go slow because he's got some fuel back in the tank, and he can go as fast as he wants, and that'll make a difference.
And then there's Will Power, one of the dominant cars of the race, sitting there in 4th, Rick.
In fact, his strategist, John Boslog, was just telling him, you've got plenty of speed, plenty of power. Let's talk about what he's going to do on this restart. Can he get by these 3 guys?
We think he can. He was running really quick. Talking right now. I think we got something for him for sure. Hopefully they need to go green soon because the guys in front of us still need to save a little bit. But we were a couple mile an hour quicker. He's been great all day, great stops. You know, Robbie on our fuel and Dave on the engineer. It's been a solid effort so far. It'd be a shame if we didn't get it because it's been a really good race for us. But that's Indy.
So here's the question: inside, outside, which way do you pass in that restart?
He kept talking. I don't know. It's going to be up to him. He's talking both. So we'll see. It's going to be exciting.
Indeed, it will be.
I think that's an understatement from John Boslog. Just one other driver we want to talk about in this line of cars, that pink and black car right there, number 60, Jack Harvey, driving for Michael Shank, former driver who's made a name building a team in sports car racing, at one time mortgaged his home to keep his team alive. Now his dream to be an IndyCar owner, here for a 2nd year. Harvey, former winner on the oval in the Freedom 100, the Indy Light Series race they have here on Carb Day, making just his 2nd 500-mile race start. And here he finds himself running in 3rd position inside the final 10 laps. What do you think's going through his head?
Remember, he said last year, along with Michael Shank, can't believe that they're here. It's a dream come true. but there is no doubt that your butterflies are in your stomach. And as we're looking here on the left-hand side of the car, the mirror is missing for Oriol Servia. Now, as a leader, Eddie, I'm not sure I'm going to be looking in the mirrors all that much. No. And also remember, you do have the spotters up in turn 1 and turn 3 to let the driver know if there's somebody looking on the high side, the low side. But at this point in time, when the time to go green, there's the spotters all lined up there for all the teams. I would not be looking in the mirrors whatsoever. I'll be putting my foot on the gas.
Going to get the 1 to go signal at the start-finish line. We will get green with 7 laps to go in the 500. Wow.
And heart rate is pumping right now.
And we know, back to a point that Eddie made earlier today, Scott, and your thoughts on this, but as difficult once they get sorted out to pass as it's been, how aggressive everybody's going to be at the drop of the green flag.
You don't even weigh the risk-reward ratio anymore. You just go for it. We heard John Boslog talk about willpower, go high or go low. You are going to take any opening that's in front of you because he wants to dispatch a car a lap so that he can get out in front and take off from Scott Dixon. Remember, Scott Dixon, not as much fuel, but I think that also willpower's got a faster
right
car.
now, the driver who's leading, Servia, has to be, if he can, a little bit sneaky on how he takes off, because if you take off where they expect you to on the restart, you will get passed into 1. We saw that earlier in the race, so you've got to find a way to put just enough distance between you and the cars behind. But his problem is there's a lot of guys behind him that are thinking exactly the same thing.
Well, the other side of that, too, is that where you are with willpower, those 3 guys up in front, not as much experience with the exception of Oriol Servia. If there's something happening in front of him, you have to get through that accident also.
So coming to the green flag. How long will we race under green with all of that aggressiveness? Another factor in trying to get all you can as fast as you can.
I would say the odds are off on making it through without any problems on the first restart.
These 300,000 people have all just stood on their feet coming to the green flag on a late restart to see who wins in Indianapolis.
He didn't get enough. He did not get enough.
Here comes Wilson, looking on Servia for the lead. Harvey to the inside. Power in the silver car. Wilson gets it. Power had to check up. How much will that cost him?
I think Dixon's going to get around him.
Stephen Wilson leads the Indianapolis 500.
Unbelievable. Power's going to have to start passing cars. There's not that many laps to go.
Got to get around Servia quick here. Power looking in the draft. Breaks to the outside and he'll get to 3rd place. 6 laps to go.
Other thing for willpower, he's got fresher tires on his car by about 20 laps, so there's definitely going to be more grip.
He's almost close enough to make a pass at the end of this lap, but not quite. Needs another 6 feet.
Power tracking Harvey, going to look, won't have it in this set of corners.
Now it's all about timing. Sit back here for a little and then get on the gas.
Watch the throttle. Ooh, he lost time in that lap.
His right hand went down to make an adjustment on the anti-roll bar to change the handling of his car. What a story for Stephen Wilson. Does he have enough fuel?
Oh, he's going to have to pit. And Harvey pits.
In the pits.
And Will Power takes the lead at Indianapolis with 4 laps to go.
You be the leader, my man.
This is where it's more difficult on the team and the spouse. You're driving the car. You know what you're doing out there. The team right now only sees you come back the front stretch all the time. The spouse, the same thing. For
Liz. She's just got to wonder if he'll make it to the end.
Clear by 10.
We'll check his speed. His last lap was a 2:16.
Go hard here. We got cars pit.
Three laps to go.
That lap was a 2:20.
Which, compared to the race pace we've seen for a lot of the days, is blistering.
Is really fast. And the car that's following him just did a 2:16. This is Power's race.
Will Power, for a number of years, talked about having difficulty managing the mental aspect of racing, the pressure situations, had difficulty with that. Got himself into position to win a championship, had to lose one to win one, finally won that championship. Then the oval track racing. People said he's not a good oval track racer. He's a supreme road course racer. He worked on it, losing out to Montoya in 2015 here, but finishing second springboarded Will Power's confidence level at this racetrack. And now here he is, I've told you before, so smooth and so calm and so confident all month, and now just over a lap away from checking that last box of career goals.
He's got one back marker to cut through.
And that box that you talk about, we mentioned earlier on the show, if you drive for Roger Penske, yes, you can win championships. As he's coming up for one lap to go, the white flag is flying, but you need to make sure that you win an Indianapolis 500 if you want to retain your job with Team Penske.
Clear by 40.
The lap car is Charlie Kimball. You hear the radio call, clear by 40 car lengths, 2 corners to go. Fans on their feet waving and cheering. He'll never be introduced the same way again. From now on, it'll be Will Power, Indianapolis 500 winner for 2018. Checkered flag, Power and Penske win it.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God! Hell of a job there, big guy. Good job, number 12. Great job, guys. Great, thank you. You're a hell of a man there. Oh, man, you won it.
Roger Penske on the radio. His wife Liz enjoying seeing her husband become the 72nd driver to win the Indy 500. Doc.
Liz, he just won the Indy 500. Your emotion. Oh.
I can't even.
What were you thinking that last lap?
I knew he could do it. I had kind of a weird calm. Normally I'm really rested, but I knew we could. And the guys, the team, not without them. I mean, with that last lap, I'm thinking, okay, all right, I can breathe. I'm so proud of them, all of them.
He told me at home in quiet moments, he shared with you how much he wanted this race.
He wanted it so bad. So bad. He was so determined for this one. And he did it. He's been focused.
Go celebrate.
Thank you.
How about that, Alan? Liz Power's husband is an Indy 500 winner.
I think we saw earlier from Al Unser Jr. said it's Indianapolis, you just don't know what it means. Well, that's a good illustration right there. It's 5:25 in the morning in Australia. I bet you there's a lot of folks up and about, cheering and about to start a big old day-long celebration.
energy was pent up in there.
Years ago, that was you. What does that feel like?
That's a hard one to answer. It's like your world just starts all over again. I'm so glad I got to witness him winning.
From Toowoomba, Australia to victory lane. He gets a hug from Simon Pagenaud. Let's talk about what this means. What a long journey you've had to this place today.
Man, I just can't believe it. I changed my attitude a lot after Barber. Very positive, had a great month. I just can't believe it. I got to thank Roger Penske, Verizon, and my parents for allowing me to get to this point. This is just, I can't describe it. I feel like collapsing. I want to cry. Oh my God. I couldn't stop screaming on the radio. I can't believe it.
All right, so you're leading with just a handful of laps to go, and the yellow flag comes out. What's going through your mind?
I'm just like, I have to get these guys. I don't know how much fuel they got, but this is a restart of my life. And then I go on and two pit, I'm like, man, I think I'm going to win this. I was screaming on with one to go. I was screaming like, man, I got this. Unbelievable.
All right, you've had some low moments in your life. Things that got away from you. We were so close. Does that make this so much sweeter for a guy who's, at your age, 37 years old, to win this Indy 500?
I was wondering if I would ever win it, and thoughts went through my mind during the month, I guess. It's like, my career, I've had so many wins, so many poles, but everyone always talks about the 500, and I won it. I just couldn't imagine winning a race in front of a crowd like this. This many people, it's just amazing. What an event. I love it.
Well, the Borg Warner Trophy's behind you. Your face is going to be on it. Congratulations, Will Power.
Roger Penske with his 17th win as an Indianapolis 500 owner. You know that made him happy. The team, they work so hard on these race cars. So hard. What a payoff. And the driver, the dream is reality. Will Power, you are an Indianapolis 500 winner. What a day, what a race, and still much more to come from the Brickyard. Will Power started this race in the third position, led 59 of the 200 laps, and led the one that counted the most. Will Power, the Firestone Durable driver of the race. You have a feeling from some of the reactions that we've seen that this one might be celebrated for a little while. You certainly know it's appreciated. What a great drive, and all the traditions that go with winning at the Brickyard. Will Power with Team Penske President Tim Cindric and the captain himself. And so a look at the unofficial results of the Indianapolis 500. Will Power, your race winner. Ed Carpenter came up just short. Scott Dixon wound up third.
A big sprinkling of Chevy and Honda Power cars through there, but when you look for Alexander Rossi, he was marching through the field. Would have been any different if he had just a few more laps. Marco Andretti, another brilliant drive by him, but never gets.
But what I was really impressed with was Stephen Wilson. He came within very few laps to finish in the top 3.
And the drivers who had difficulty in the race, a number of drivers with crashes, including Kanaan, Castroneves, Bourdais, and Danica Patrick's final race wound up in the wall off of turn number 2. Final 3 finishers. Ed Carpenter with his best finish in the 500, but it's not the spot he wanted, Jan.
And Ed Carpenter with the day. Normally, second place in any other race is almost like a victory, but you tasted this one. You were so strong in the beginning. What happened later on?
I'm not totally sure. I mean, we lost the lead in one of the pit sequences, so I'll have to look at the data and see if I had a bad in lap. Thought the guy's stops were great the whole time. There was one of that laps I kind of caught a weird string of traffic, and that's all it takes. Track position was so critical. Late into the race, everyone was saving fuel, and I knew the guys were telling me Will and Simon were like a lot better than me at that point. And the first restart we had when I was behind him, I had a good run, and I think I could have passed him. And I was like, I'll just sit here and save some fuel and work on him on the exchange. Then we got all those yellows, and then it made it not a fuel race anymore. So that's the one moment, kind of in hindsight now, where I kick myself. But in the moment, it seemed like the right decision. But in hindsight, I should have just taken an opportunity at track position and worried about fuel after the fact. But yeah, like you said, it's in a couple days I'll feel better about this finish. I'm still extremely proud of the entire Ed Carpenter Racing team. I think we had to have been probably one of 2 guys most consistent, day in, day out, different conditions this month. So proud of that. Wish my teammates could have been up there a little bit more as well, but it had been a while since I had a top 5 here, so feels good to finish in a good position. Really happy for Will. He and I talked quite a bit for competitors, and when he first came here after the unification, he hated ovals, and now he loves them, and he and I love racing together. Someday he might drive for me. I don't think we have a tampering rule in IndyCar, but congrats, Will.
Job well done.
Thanks.
Fun. I think this is going to be a popular win in a lot of areas. It sure is in victory lane. Will Power, the winner of the 102nd Indianapolis 500-mile race. More coming up. Back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Will Power, his wife Liz, his family on the traditional victory lap around the speedway in the convertible, live on the public address system. So all the fans around this massive speedway can see the winner and no doubt see the joy on his face as Will Power has scored his first win in this great race. Wow, what a day. Where to start summing it up? What are your final thoughts on the 102nd 500?
What a popular winner. I know in Australia they'll be drinking a lot of beer the next 2 days because they do know how to party. But it was amazing. The end was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was just something else. And the cars were so difficult to drive. I think they brought the cars back to where they need to be. And if you're going to go fast, you're going to have to take risks. And those risks sometimes pay off and sometimes they don't.
When you think about Will Power, he arrived at Team Penske at Long Beach in 2009 as a substitute for Helio Castroneves, who could not make the event. Roger Penske saw the talent in the young driver and decided he had to keep him some way, somehow. He ended up being on the team very shortly there full time, and look what he's now accomplished. Remember I said earlier in the show, keep your job at Team Penske. Sooner or later you need to win an Indianapolis 500. I think Will Power can rest assured.
He picked him. He picked him. He picked him from a week ago.
Oh, don't tell me that.
A week ago. Every 2 minutes he tells us, look who's leading. Look who's leading. Our driver expert here.
Will Power had a calm about him. You heard him mention it earlier, but he had a calm about him all week. Every time you talk to him, while other teams are trying to figure out the balance of the car, what to do, he's, yeah, we're good. We're right there. We have a good feel. I'm confident. It's good. I mean, riding confidence like that all week long, you saw it in his driving, particularly on that last restart when he had to have it. And now look at him taking the trip around the speedway as the winner of the Indianapolis 500.
Well, he's always been very fast, but as you mentioned during the telecast, Alan, he's now very focused, and he does not make mistakes. For a driver, I think that the talent that he has, so many race wins, so many poles, there's going to be more championships and maybe more Indy 500s ahead of him.
My favorite shot is when he was in the winner's circle and they focused on his eyes.
Yeah.
He looked like a crazed animal. He was just so full of energy, like I couldn't believe it.
Well, it's terrific.
Awesome. It was great to see.
Well, just like it always seems to do, another 500 in the books that doesn't let us down and sends us away talking about what a great day that it was. And so Will Power celebrates winning his first Indianapolis 500 victory. And you know, one constant in ABC's coverage of the race over these past 54 years has been, it's not about us, it's about the people in the race. And so we leave you with a very simple thank you for watching and a celebration of all the traditions that are the Indianapolis 500 and all the joy that comes with winning the greatest spectacle in racing. That was done today by Will Power and Team Penske.